Hey people, Shinobi no Kami here. In this fanfic after the Kyuubi attack, Naruto was adopted by Kakashi Hatake, an ex-Anbu captain and a student of Naruto's father Minato. How will this change the little Naruto's life? Will he be spared from the villagers' hatred or will things be the same as in the original timeline? Watch to know. Before we begin, please use the like button and share the video if you enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Now, let's roll the intro. Chapter 31, Getting Stronger. It was after the day off and Team 7 was back at their training grounds. The team looked better after a day to unwind. Sakura had spent the entire day with Ino and it was good to just hang out with her best friend, and her reaction to the fact that she saw Naruto's real face was still funny. Sasuke seemed to be not so distant and Naruto seemed to be back to his older self as well. Of course they were now waiting for Kakashi to show up as usual. "Naruto, do you have any idea where sensei is?" Sakura asked as they waited. "As if I'd know, all I know is that he said he needed to get something for us and get a little help for the next step in training, whatever that means." He shrugged. So they went back to waiting around for Kakashi to show up, wondering how late he would be today. Thankfully it seemed that he was only an hour late today when he suddenly showed up in a puff of smoke. "They here, sorry I'm late but I had to pick something up and get someone's help for today," he said from his place on a branch overhead. "Lair." Naruto and Sakura yelled at him. "No, it's the truth," he said as it was for once. He jumped down and pulled out a box. "Now all we have to do is wait for who I asked to help with your training." "Help with our training?" Sasuke asked him, wondering where the man was going with this. Kakashi nodded. "Yes, the last mission made me think that you all need a bit more training. So I thought of something special on the way back. We're going to start with weapons training and elemental jutsu training for the next week." "Alright, this sounds awesome," Naruto yelled out. "So who did you ask for help, Dad?" "Anyone we know." Kakashi chuckled. "Oh, you can say that. So when is this person going to get here?" Sasuke asked with his arms crossed. The last thing this team needed was someone else that was chronically late. However, he was still thinking about his talk earlier with Kakashi. He had been thinking about this Obito Uchiha and what kind of person he had been like to give up one of his eyes, even on death. Such a thing was unheard of, as like with the Hyugas his clan guarded their eyes fiercely. He looked at his team as they were talking. Naruto was trying to guess at who it was that was coming and Kakashi kept smiling behind his mask. Sakura was there silently wondering what was going on as well. He thought if he was in Obito's position, would he sacrifice himself for any of them? It would mean that his goal to avenge his clan would end if he did. He was also thought if he was dying, if he could trust any of them with his eyes like that man had. It still was just surreal to think of an Uchiha capable of that. "Hey there." Sasuke looked up in time to see a woman in a trench coat, ninja chainmail shirt, miniskirt, who also had purple hair tied up top of her head. She landed with a bundle under her arm close to the team. "Auntie Anko." Naruto yelled out happily. "Hey there brat, how's it going?" Anko smiled at him. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at this. He never knew there was an aunt in the family, but then why didn't she wear a mask too? Was it only the men that wore that? He looked around and saw Sakura looking slightly nervous, and then he remembered that she had been closer to Naruto for years. It was obvious that she knew the woman. As she was talking with Naruto, he moved closer to the pink-haired girl. "Sakura, you know this woman?" Sakura jumped at being addressed by Sasuke, but she smiled at him, blushing slightly. Yeah, that's Anko. I met her at Naruto's birthday parties." "She's his aunt." "Well, not really." Sakura went in to explain how Anko wasn't actually a relative of the Hatake family, she was a good friend of the family. Naruto just liked to give adults certain titles. The Hokage was the old man, Anko was his aunt, and Guy was his uncle. Sasuke went to ask who Guy was, but she told him quickly that he didn't want to know. Sakura had good reason to be nervous around the woman, she was creepy. She had this smile that put you on edge, and the fact the first time she showed up at the first birthday party she and the rest had gone to had been a day she never forgot. They had all been there as it was the first time they had celebrated Naruto's birthday. The house was pretty large for just the two of them. The yard had been huge, so the party was held out there. It had been pretty fun. Of course she hadn't expected several grown-ups to show up. The Hokage stopping by was a surprise. Then there was Guy, who came out of nowhere. Asuma also showed up for a bit too. But then that was when Anko showed up onto the scene. She had been talking with Naruto when a kunai came out of nowhere and actually sliced his cheek a bit. She had screamed and fell back, and Naruto jumped as well, a hand going to his face. And there smiling was Anko. "You're getting slow, brat, you used to be able to dodge those better," she said. Naruto jumped at her yelling, and it kind of devolved into the point where insults were flying and she ended up putting him into a headlock. But then after that they were both acting like nothing happened, all the while she had been too scared to move and every other kid just stood there frozen in shock. The adults were used to it though, and Hinata seemed to take it better, although she had been worried about the small cut on his cheek. Thinking back to the present, she was now worried what kind of help Anko was going to give them. "So Kakashi, you better make this worth my while," Anko said, facing the masked Jonin. "I'm taking time off my schedule for this, and that weaponsmith was on the other side of the village too." "Alright, fair enough, Dango is on me then," he smiled at her. Anko thought about it. That sure would be nice, but she had been thinking about Kakashi a lot more than usual lately. Ever since she saw that damn face of his, she found the image of his face showing up at the oddest times. Okay, so he was physically attractive, had a major career, and was a single father who did his best to raise his adopted kid. Hell, to most women that would be the perfect guy, although he did have his faults. He was so secretive that only after years of knowing him did she know a bit. She knew about him going to the memorial stone almost daily, and that was the real reason he was constantly late. She knew about his parents dying while he was young, the suicide of his father. She knew that behind that mask he had to be hurting a lot, but he never showed it, never bothered people with it. She knew about his reading habits, but in all honesty she had her own copies of the books too. Hell, some women actually liked them because they had some strong female characters in them, while some romance books the woman was all girly and couldn't do anything herself. Plus the sex scenes were really hot. But now she had him in an interesting way. He owed her, and maybe now she could finally sort things out with how she felt, and maybe even seeing if she could get past that wall he put up. Actually, that might be a good idea, Kakashi. For desert, she said, grinning, and noticed his confused look. The Dango can pay for the trip to the weaponsmith, but for my help training will take more. Kakashi sighed. Okay then, what do you want? Easy, take me out for a decent dinner tonight. Kakashi blinked a few times. Nothing fancy, just treat me to dinner and Dango and we call it even. Kakashi thought it over, and it wasn't a bad idea actually. Plus he couldn't think of anyone else he wouldn't mind spending time with. She was an interesting woman, and he had to admit she was full of life, although he knew that she put on a face sometimes, but she largely enjoyed life. Besides, he did owe her, and he couldn't remember the last time he just went out. Alright, it's a fair deal. Alright then, so which one is my victim for the day? She asked, looking at the three kids. Just hold your horses, I have to explain things to them first. Kakashi smiled as he turned to face his team. Okay, Sakura and Sasuke, you two will start weapons training today. Sasuke, even though you're good with the ninja wire, I think it's time for you to learn how to use something. The academy records said you showed promise with a sword, so I got you one. He motioned to Anko, who walked over and laid down one of the wooden boxes. She opened it and handed a katana to him and handed it to him. Kakashi pulled the blade from the sheath as he showed it to him. This is a special blade made from a strong metal that you can send chakra through. Now it will take time to learn that, but I think this could be good for you. I'll be teaching you how to wield it. Kakashi said as he put the blade back and handed it to the boy. Now as for you, Sakura, Anko will be teaching you the weapon I chose for you. Kakashi smiled, seeing the girl get a little pale at the mention of Anko teaching her. Anko pulled out two weapons from the box. They were long pieces of metal that were rounded with a handle near the bottom. These are tonfas, Kakashi explained to the girl who tested them out. They can be used to defend and attack in many ways. You can disable or even cripple a person with them, making them very versatile. What he didn't say was that he wanted her to have a non-lethal weapon until she was more ready to kill. She had been the most shook up from her first kill, so he wanted to give her the option of being able to take someone down without killing. At any rate, she still have her kunai and shurikens if she really did need to kill, plus even a tonfa could kill. You could break someone's neck, crack their skull, or just bludgeon them with the weapon. Plus Naruto did say that she can hit pretty hard, so it was a good weapon for her. Hey, what about me? Naruto asked, looking up at him. I was getting to you, Naruto. Kakashi smiled as he pulled out a small sword. I had to wait to get this repaired as it was broken for a long time. I just never had a reason to get it fixed until now. Naruto, this is my father's white light chakra saber. Naruto looked wide-eyed at it as he gently took the small sword. You mean Grandpa Hitaki's sword? The one that you once used? Yep, Kakashi said to him. But, this is a family heirloom. Naruto wasn't sure if he should even accept it. He wasn't a real Hitaki after all, he was only adopted. Kakashi placed a hand on his should. Who better to give this to other than my own son? Naruto looked up, feeling so nice that Kakashi told him that, even though they weren't related by blood, they were a real family. He smiled down, looking at the blade used by Tsukumo Hitaki, the legendary White Fang. Just holding the blade, Naruto wanted to do proud by his adopted family. He pulled out the sword and it looked normal enough. You have to channel your chakra into the blade to get the full effect. It will take some time, but you're not doing weapons practice today. Kakashi told him. What? How come? He demanded. Because even though you're ahead of Sasuke in the way of the sword, but he's been training with those ninjutsus. So it's ninjutsu training for you today. Kakashi told him. I want you to practice those scrolls one gave you. The wind armor and wind blade will be very useful to you. Kakashi sensei. Sakura asked him. Will I be using more genjutsu instead of ninjutsu? Well, it's your strength, but what's your element? Sakura didn't know. Thankfully, Kakashi had a few slips of chakra paper on him among his supplies. He tested her and it turned out that she was a water user. Unfortunately, he didn't know any low-powered water styles jutsus, and neither did Anko. Sakura was a little disappointed to hear that, as she knew her chakra levels needed more work. But Kakashi did say he would looking into more genjutsu and lower-level water style moves as well. Sakura felt a bit better at that is until a hand slapped down onto her shoulder. She looked up nervously at a grinning Anko and swallowed hard. Well, Pinky, looks like we get to play, Anko said dangerously. And so the day went. Kakashi trained Sasuke in the finer uses of a sword while he went to check on Naruto and Sakura to give any helpful hints. Naruto was using his shadow clones, trying to get his chakra just right for the moves. He already had the hand seals down, but the moving and altering your chakra part he knew Naruto would have trouble with. So he gave helpful hints now and then. He also noticed that at least one clone was training with his father's sword. He should have known that Naruto would still find a way to train with that. He saw Sakura was actually learning well from Anko, although the woman was pushing the young girl very hard. Sakura asked if she could take off the weights that were on her ankles and wrists, but Anko told her that if she even thought about it again she would get her heavier ones. Sakura didn't mention it again after it. Sasuke did have some talent with the sword and he could see that he picked the right weapon. He also asked Kakashi more about Obito while they trained, and Kakashi did. It was actually nice being able to talk about his best friend. Sasuke did have to admit after hearing the stories that Obito was nothing like an Uchiha. By the end of the day all three students were wiped out. Sakura felt like her entire body ached, Sasuke's arms hurt from using the blade for so long, and Naruto was getting close to chakra exhaustion. But all three genin felt like they had made some progress for the day, so Kakashi let them off the hook a few hours early. The kids went off and he was proud of how well they were doing for the first day. He was thinking about getting them some new weights as well, as this training would help them adjust to them even more. So Kakashi, you better keep your end of the deal. Anko told him. Oh, don't worry, I know better than to get on your bad side, he chuckled. After they both went to their homes for a quick shower and a change of clothes. Although it was just a dinner between friends, both felt a little strange by this. They had eaten before, but never alone. Usually Naruto was with them or they were with their friends as well. So now they were both wondering if they should just dress casual or at least put a little effort into it. For Kakashi, he just decided to dress down a bit, mainly just pants without the taping at the bottom, and with no Chunin jacket either. In fact, he went with a simple dark shirt that matched his mask. For Anko, she was wondering a bit more about her appearance. This was just one step to see if there was anything between the two of them. She didn't want to dress too strongly but also wanted to give him something to think about. She got rid of all the ninja gear in her trench coat. She kept her hair in its usual way, but went with simple sandals, a skirt and a nice shirt that went with it. The good thing about the shirt was that it had a nice little versus neckline that let her show off some cleavage but not too much. She decided with only light lipstick for the night as she picked up a purse she wore when she went out in more civilian clothing without her coat. With that ready, she walked over to Kakashi's. After all, she told him that she would meet him. She was in no mood to wait around for him in case he was late again. She got to the front door and knocked, and when Kakashi showed up she liked the casual look, although she wished he wouldn't wear the mask again. She mentally sighed seeing him wearing it. "So you ready to go?" Kakashi asked, giving her an eye smile. "Sure thing," she said as they walked to their destination. They had a little light talk on the way there as he asked her about Sakura's progress. Anko had to admit that Sakura was raw, but the girl had some talent when she actually applied herself. With some proper motivation and training, she was sure that the girl would become a good ninja one day. They decided on a nice little place that was more civilian patronage, mainly because they didn't want to run into anyone from work and starting all kinds of rumors. They both didn't need any more rumors running about them, not that they cared, but it did get a bit annoying at times. Plus the place sold dango, so Anko was sold on that point alone. Dinner turned out to be very nice for them. Anko was still annoyed that he somehow managed to eat and drink without taking the damn mask off. If she hadn't seen his face that one time, she would have been convinced that he had been born with the damn thing on his skin. At any rate, they would talk about the usual things that ninjas would talk about: new missions they had been on, new ninja supplies and which store offered the best merchandise and what new things were in stock. New information on the ninja world as well, such as who just got into the bingo books and why, and who was now off the books, and there was only one way someone usually got off the books. They even would talk about it in jokes that only ninjas would get as well. And the latest news on their fellow ninjas too. Kakashi wasn't surprised to find that Guy was last seen trying to climb the Hokage mountain with a boulder on his back with both arms tied behind his back. Apparently he made it halfway up before he crash landed. He was expected to get out of the hospital in a week. After dinner, Anko decided to have her dango to go as she ate it happily as they walked out. Kakashi had to chuckle at how childlike she was when she was happily eating the snack food. It really took the edges off her personality, and he felt that he was getting a small look at a side of her that she didn't let out often. "Hey Kakashi, you want some tea?" Anko asked as she finished off her last stick. "We're close to my apartment and I could use some after that meal." Kakashi thought about it and it did sound nice, plus he knew it wasn't going to lead up to anything. He had a couple of dates in the past that used the "you want to come up for some tea" line, but Anko didn't put any hidden meaning behind the wording. Plus he had never seen her place before, so he was interested in what her place looked like. They walked up to a ordinary apartment complex, nothing major as you see them around the village all over the place. It helped to save space to build apartments rather than housing, because the more the village grew you ran into a problem with the walls surrounding the village. You would have to expand the walls and that wouldn't be an easy feat and very expensive as well. So they walked up to the 5th floor as she put her key into the lock and they walked inside. Kakashi looked around as she went to the kitchen to make the tea. It was a fairly neat and tidy place. He hadn't been sure what to expect, but it was a fairly ordinary place. It was lived in, but something was odd about it. He looked and realized it was actually kind of plain. There were a few decorations here and there, but nothing that really stood out like she decorated to just fill in space. Although he guessed she filled those spaces with things she liked. He noticed a painting in black and white of a lone tree in a valley. It was kind of lonely looking to him. A few other things here or there, but he noticed that one shelf held a lot of pictures. He smiled as he looked at one with a younger Anko and Kurenai smiling with Chunin vests on. It was most likely taken just as they were both made Chunin together. There was one of her with Naruto and himself at one of Naruto's birthdays. A few others of the few friends as well were there, but there was one that caught his eye. He gently picked it up, seeing a very young Anko with two older people. From the looks of it he had a guess they were her parents. Enko came back with some tea and saw him looking at her pictures, and when she got closer she saw the one he held. She silently looked on, not sure what to say. It wasn't easy talking about her parents. Thankfully she didn't have to, as he suddenly spoke up without looking at her. It's hard living with this kind of burden, isn't it? What? She asked. Living on after those we loved have gone, he said as he gently put the photo back, still looking at it. I was young too when I lost my parents. I can barely remember my mother anymore, other than from pictures, and I find myself struggling to even remember her voice. Enko now knew what he was talking about, and she felt it too. Having to move on with her parents gone hurt every day. Sure, it didn't hurt as much as it did, but there was a hole in her life that she would never get back. And now she remembered that Kakashi most likely had that same hole as well. I was so young when they died, Enko said silently. I remember them hugging me and telling me they would be back from their mission soon. I waited and waited, but they never came back. I would stay up all night waiting for them. When they didn't come back on time, then I heard they had been killed on the mission. I was devastated. I was filled with so much pain and anger. I thought nothing would be okay again, and then, she trailed off, remembering what happened next. Kakashi was interested in knowing. Ever after all these years he still didn't know much about her. But then again, they were both secretive people. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder, making her look up into his eye. You don't have to go on if you don't want to. I know how painful the past is. Enko nodded, but instead she felt like she had to get this out. Only Kurenai knew about this, and that took a long time to trust her with this. But she felt that she could trust him. After all this time, maybe it was time to start opening up a bit. Besides, he was just as screwed up from a painful past as she was, so maybe he could relate. That was when Orochimaru found me, she stated, and Kakashi nodded his head. He became my teacher, my mentor, and, well, he helped me. Or at least I thought he was helping me, but I was nothing but a tool for him. He told me all the right things and made me trust him, then he puts this damn cursed seal on me and leaves me behind. He took my memories as well. Do you know what that's like? I feel like I was violated in a way that I didn't know existed. That bastard ruined my life for a second time. Enko clenched her fists in anger, feeling all the old pain rising up. Then she felt Kakashi gently holding onto her shoulders, and she was brought out of it. She looked into his eye and she didn't see pity or sorrow. She saw a deep understanding in that single eye of his. No matter what happened, Enko, just remembered that you endured. You rose up from the wreckage to become even stronger than you were before. It's not an easy thing to do, and you should be proud of that. I know what it's like to have been left behind to pick up the pieces. It's never easy, but I learned something. He said to her. My life hit rock bottom the night of the Fox's attack, and I lost the last precious person in my life. I had nothing, and yet that was the night I took in Naruto. Because I knew what it was like to have nothing, and I didn't want that for him. But the funny thing is that even though I took him in to help him, he helped me as well. He gave me a reason to get up in the morning and something worth living for. I learned that you don't have to go through it alone. Enko smiled a little. I did have Kurenai to help me out when we became friends. And later the other few friends I made too. Kakashi smiled back at her. Yeah, and well, you know, me and Naruto will be there too. Enko felt a warmth in her chest that he would be there for her. She hadn't felt a feeling like that in so long. She wasn't sure what it was, but it felt nice to her. Thanks, Kakashi, and well, the same goes for me too. Kakashi nodded his head. He wasn't sure why, but he felt glad about that. So what about that tea? Enko just laughed at that moment. It figures that he would break up a moment like this with something like that. But she was glad for it as they went to get their tea together, as they went into more light-hearted conversations. Chapter 32, Rematch with Lee. It had been a couple of weeks, and from the new training and D-ranked missions things were going well for Team 7. Although the new training on top of any old training was going well, they all felt like they were getting much stronger now as well. They were even increasing how heavy the weights were at the moment. Sakura still had the lightest set, but she was starting to catch up a bit more all the time. Right now they had just finished another mission, mainly walking some ladies' dogs. Although after the last big mission the team was glad to relax a bit, they were starting to feel like they needed a bit more of a challenge. At the moment they were just hanging out in a small alley wondering what to do next. Of course now all the genins had weapon holsters. Naruto's was on his back, while Sasuke's was behind his lower back. Sakura had used the holders for her tonfas behind her back as well, as it was the easiest place to keep them. "Oh man, I'm so bored," Naruto whined. "Why couldn't we have trained or done more missions? Plus teams 8 and 10 are busy with their own missions. This just sucks." "Well, why didn't Kakashi-sensei wanted to continue with training Naruto?" Sakura asked him, feeling just as bored. Although the training she was getting made her feel stronger, the fact that Anko was helping her with the weapons was something that she looked forward to and dreaded. The woman was good, there was no question about that, but the woman also was scary. "I don't know," Naruto shrugged. Maybe his dad just needed some time, but the only thing he said was that there was someone he needed to see and just disappeared. "This is pointless," Sasuke said, pushing himself off the wall. "We should train or something, if not then I can go home and work on my fire jutsus." Naruto felt like he needed to train too, but he felt like he needed something different. They had been training together for 2 weeks now and it was kind of getting predictable. Maybe something new and unexpected was in order. The only problem was that who would be up for some training, sparring? The others in their age group were all busy and it wasn't like any of the adults could spare anything. Then it hit Naruto just who might be up for just that. If there was one teacher and student that would be up for something, they would be. "Oh hey, I know just who to train with," Naruto said excitedly. "I think they might still be in the village too, and I know where they train." Naruto slowed down. Sakura yelled at him, "Who are you talking about?" "Oh right, sorry." Naruto scratched the back of his head, slightly embarrassed. "Well, you know Hinata-chan's cousin." Sakura nodded. She and the others had met the boy at Naruto's sometimes. He was kind of cold, although Ino loved the boy's hair and was even a bit jealous of it as well. She remembered how the cool Hyuga boy had been surprised when Ino ran up to him begging for his secrets of his hair care. "Yeah, well, Neji's team is a year ahead of us and he's been trained by Uncle Guy. Trust me, he'd love to have his team go up against ours just because he's my dad's rival." There was another reason, and that was because Naruto wanted another sparring match against Lee. With his new moves and skills he was now ready to take on the older boy. Sasuke gave a small grunt. "What's so special about this group besides that you know them?" Sasuke didn't really see anything important about this team, besides how could they challenge them? Although he wouldn't admit it out loud, they were most likely the best team in their class. Sakura was proving to be better than he had originally thought and liked that she took her training seriously. Although he wished she would stop acting like a fangirl whenever he gave her attention, it was seriously annoying. Plus Naruto had always been someone he had to push himself to stay ahead of as well. Naruto knew what would sell Sasuke as a grin slowly spread behind his mask. "Oh, they just have the Neji Hyuga, who was last year's Rookie of the Year and is said to be a Hyuga prodigy. But I guess that's not going to interest you in the least. After all, just because the guy might be even better than you." "What did you say?" Sasuke said coldly. "What? He's a year older and after all the Hyuga are the most powerful clan now." Sasuke grounded his teeth at that last comment. The only reason the Hyuga were so powerful was because Itachi killed off his clan. Plus he had to admit his ego was telling him that there was no way some Hyuga boy could be better than he was. Perhaps if Naruto wanted to train with this team he could also prove just who was the real prodigy in this village as well. Naruto smirked seeing Sasuke thinking about it. He knew that he would never be able to pass up the chance to go at it with Neji if he found out about him. Plus that whole Hyuga Uchiha rivalry was a surefire way to get him to go. It was just like with his dad and Guy. If you knew what buttons to push, then all you had to do was sit back and let nature take its course. After years of doing it with those two adults, doing this to Sasuke was just so much simpler. "So," Naruto grinned at him, "what do you say? Wanna go and see for yourself how the great Hyuga fights? If he feels honored he might let you watch." Sasuke glared at Naruto and the masked boy knew he had him there. "Just shut up and lead the way," Sasuke snapped. So the young team were on their way to meet up with Team Guy and Naruto couldn't wait. Plus while walking he gave them a few heads up. They were kind of confused on why they weren't supposed to look directly at the green, whatever that meant. And also when he yelled out to turn away to do so if they didn't want more mental scarring over something that Naruto just kept saying was the most sickening and scary genjutsu in the world. He didn't elaborate, he only shivered as he thought about it. Sakura was wondering what type of genjutsu could have that kind of effect. Well, whatever it was, she wanted to see what the big deal is and maybe she could learn a new one out of this. Team Guy training grounds. Neji sighed as he was waiting with Tenten for Lee and Guy to get through another round of them yelling each other's name and hoping. He didn't do the whole slow motion, running into the sunset thing. Although he and Tenten had long ago figured out how to tune them out when they got like this, they had to pay attention or get accidentally caught seeing that horrible display of theirs. He sighed in annoyance, wondering how long this would take. He was getting bored. He cast a look to see Tenten just as bored, but then again the girl was already ready for action. She was twirling a kunai around on the ring with a finger, not even looking at it. Most would be nervous about that, but he knew that her skills were better than most ninja with weapons. In fact, they were amazing. Every weapon she picked up, it was like she had been training with it for years, a true gift. Plus, unlike most young kunoichi, she was actually focused on her skills and training. It was nice to have that for a change instead of the fangirls from his days at school. Like with the Uchiha, he too had to have dealt with that for pretty much the same reasons he did. Neji couldn't stand that kind of false worship and praise. So when Tenten was on the team, he sighed a breath of release. He hadn't been sure of Lee since he was only able to pass the exam because he was handicapped, so he had to take a special test. He passed at the bottom because of his inability to use ninjutsu or genjutsu, but the boy's determination was making up for it. He never admitted it, but Lee was getting close to his own skills. Even with his handicap, Lee was proving a true challenge. How much longer? Tenten whined. Don't know, they're very enthusiastic this morning. Neji sighed, thinking that the two should switch to decaf if they got like this. It was then that his ears picked up on something coming up on them. He silently activated his eyes and focused on the sound. He was surprised by what he saw and he gave a slow sadistic smile on his face. Tenten, pervert at 4 o'clock. Angle it at 20 degrees. He grinned, seeing her eyes widen and then get very furious. If there was one thing he found out, it was that Tenten hated perverts. He wasn't sure why, but apparently it had something to do with an incident where she had been at the woman's hot spring with her mother once. Then some kind of large white-haired pervert had been caught peeping on them. Tenten never got a good look at the pervert as he was quickly chased off by the angry women, but she had never been so embarrassed or humiliated in her life. Tenten hefted the kunai a couple of times and then quickly turned and threw it. Hey! A familiar voice yelled out as Naruto came out of the forest holding her kunai. What the hell? Are you two trying to kill me? Tenten's eyes widened at that as she ran over, trying to apologize. Neji, why did you tell me that there was a pervert in the forest? She yelled at him. What, he isn't. I remember you calling him that a few times while trying to kill him, Neji said as if it was nothing new. Tenten blushed, remember how she had gone after Naruto after he showed off that forbidden jutsu in front of them. She had forgiven him, of course, but she did warn him if she ever saw him use that move she would kick his ass again. Naruto hadn't thought that Neji had it him for something like this. Maybe he was starting to rub off on the older boy. Well, one good turn deserves another in his mind. He gently gave Tenten back her kunai and his hands rested on hers a little longer than normal. Well, it's okay, I know that Tenten-chan wouldn't hurt me for real. Besides, she one of best female ninja around and her skills with weapons are amazing. Plus she's one of the cutest girls too. With that he gave her a wink, making the slightly older girl blush a bit before pulling her hand back. This had several effects as Team 7 had come out in time to see this. First was Sasuke raising an eyebrow, wondering what the hell was going on. Sakura instantly became jealous of how Naruto was flirting with this girl, an older girl at that. But the effect that it had on Neji was just the reaction he was hoping for. Neji's hands clenched so hard he could see them going white and the look in his eyes showed that he wanted to kill the masked boy. Naruto knew that Neji had a crush on the girl and this was perfect evidence for it. Sure, Tenten was cute, but he had other things in mind for a possible girlfriend. Although he did like using those lines he got from his dad on how to compliment a girl. She looked so cute blushing like that. Anyway, if this didn't get Neji off his butt and do something, then someone else would ask out Tenten and then he'd be out of luck. Naruto-kun, came the voice of Guy as he walked up to them smiling. I'm glad for a visit from you, my most youthful friend, and I see you brought the rest of the team of my eternal rival as well. Naruto, Lee said, jumped over to the other boy. I'm glad you came. I am eager for our rematch and I will not lose again to you as I've found a way around that move. Lee gave a slight shudder from it, although it was most unyouthful move it had been very effective. Plus he tried not to think on the image of that beautiful girl either. But then his eyes drifted over and they widened. Before Naruto could say a word Lee had just moved quickly to be in front of Sakura. He knelt down in front of her taking one of her hands. And this must be Sakura, Lee said with stars in his eyes. You are just as beautiful as Naruto has claimed, no you are even more beautiful than that. Please go out with me. I will protect you with my life. Sakura was shocked by all of this, he was coming on pretty strong for her. He might have been cute if it wasn't for the hideous green suit he was wearing and she couldn't stop staring at those huge eyebrows. They looked like caterpillars on his face or something. She knew that she had to do something, she didn't want to break his heart or anything after all. Naruto was always nice to people even letting them down. She remembered how he let down several of the fangirls back at school and that was one of the reasons the girls liked him. Unlike Sasuke who had just ignored them, at least Naruto had been nice about it. It was just one of the things that kind of rubbed off her over the years being friends with Naruto. She quickly looked around and he was too far away but Sasuke was right next to her. She quickly grabbed his arm in hers. Sorry but I'm dating someone already. Lee's mouth hung open as did Naruto. When did that happen? Naruto thought about seeing his crush locking arms with Sasuke. He knew that Sakura was a bit confused on who she liked more but when did she chose Sasuke? He felt a little depressed at losing to him in this and although he just wanted Sakura to be happy he had wished she had chosen him instead. Sasuke wasn't sure what she was playing on but when he was about to object he felt her nails suddenly dig into his skin. He stopped himself from yelling and gave her a glare. She quickly leaned in and whispered something to him. Please just go with it, I don't want him to think he has a chance. I'll owe you one and you just have to name it Sasuke-kun. She quietly said. He thought about it, normally he wouldn't even think about it but she was a teammate and lately he had been thinking on what that meant. All those stories that Kakashi told him of Obito, who by now Sasuke was sure that Obito was the most original Uchiha of all time, he had been thinking about what his team meant to him. Now Sakura was asking for help, although posing as her boyfriend wasn't something he would have liked to have done she did say anything. He would have to think about it as he would ensure that he got something really good back in return. Yeah, we're dating, he simply said as Lee hung in head in depression. Ah, the power of youth is in you too, and fear not Lee, there will be other opportunities for you to share your own youth with some lucky girl. Guy proclaimed, making Lee perk up a bit at that. Then he turned to Naruto who was glad he had on a mask at that point so no one could see his face. So Naruto, why have you visited us this fine day? Naruto was brought out of his slight depression at the reason they were even there. Oh yeah, well it was just that we were kinda bored and we were hoping that we could spar against your team. I know that I want to show off some new moves against Lee here. And don't worry, I won't use that jutsu against you. He quickly cast a nervous look to Tenten before looking back. Guy-sensei, please let us spar together. I'd wish to test myself against Naruto again and I want to see how well we both have improved. Lee pleaded with Guy. Guy thought about it and it wasn't a bad idea actually. It would help both teams improve and also could help them to become stronger for it. So it was agreed that the teams would pair off for the sparring matches. Sakura against Tenten, Sasuke against Neji, and Naruto and Lee were eager to go at it. Guy would oversee everything and his word was final. When he said to stop, they were to stop. So with a raised hand he looked at all three ready to go and then he dropped his hand. The three sparring matches started off right away. Sakura and Tenten were sizing each other up. Sakura pulled out her tonfas ready to give the girl a fight. Tenten smirked and from a scroll pulled out a set of her own. The older girl twirled them around with more confidence and speed than Sakura knew she had ever done. I hope you don't mind, I never get to use these much and I'd love to spar against someone who is training to use them. When most ninja just use kunai and shurikens things get so boring, it's nice to meet another ninja that likes to fight with something more unique. Tenten smiled as she got ready. Sakura struck out with her tonfa and wasn't surprised the girl was able to block and counter-attack. Before the match Naruto gave her a warning that Tenten was a master of weapons, it was her specialty. This made Sakura realize that she had no chance against a weapons master but she wanted to improve herself and Anko always said to fight those stronger than you to improve. Sashi fought back as both girls fought with the weapons. The clacking they made as the weapons hit was nearly a constant beat. Both girls twirling them, throwing out strikes and trying to go for any grapple moves with the weapons. Tenten was scoring more hits and was a bit disappointed. She had been hoping for more. Sakura knew that she wasn't fast enough and jumped away to give her some space. Giving up already? Tenten asked. No, I just need to take these off, and with that Sakura hit a simple latch on the new weights that let them dropped off easily. First her wrists and then the ones at her ankles. Now Sakura felt a lot more mobile. Now she felt better. She came back at Tenten with a lot more speed and aggression now, and the older girl was surprised. The blows were a lot harder now and she was surprised the younger girl had that kind of power to her hits. The battle only intensified as the girls were moving all over the place trading blows. Although Tenten did get in the most shots, it wasn't as many now and Sakura's blows were getting better too. Tenten wasn't sure who taught the young girl to fight, but it was a vicious style. There was some agility to it, but the strikes were to do maximum damage with little effort. She would have to ask who taught her by the end of this. With Neji and Sasuke, the two boys were already in a staring match. Neither one wanted to be the one to make the first move until they felt they had an opening. Each of them were child prodigies of their clan, and their own clans had been rivals ever since the day the Hyuga came to Konoha. As the only two clans with powerful eye bloodlines, of course rivalries would spring up, and of course many debated which was better, the Sharingan or the Byakugan. You will learn that there is reason that the Hyuga clan is the strongest in the village, Neji said to the dark-haired boy. Talk is cheap and I'll show you just why my clan was so feared and respected, Sasuke said back and started his charge. Neji and Sasuke stared off with taijutsu skills, Sasuke's intercepting fist styles against the gentle fist style of the Hyuga clan. Neji stayed where he was defending or deflecting the blows, while Sasuke's movements were more pronounced. The Hyuga style didn't have many kicks as it relied mostly on the hands and arms. The intercepting fist was a bit more open than that and allowed Sasuke more types of attacks. He jumped up for a kick and wasn't surprised the other boy blocked it, but Sasuke spun and the heel of his foot made an arc in the air, sweeping downward into a modified axe kick to Neji's head. But Neji saw this coming and threw his other forearm forward to block the downward kick. Both boys moved back after the attack and after a second of studying the other went back at it again. Neji was striking out with lightning speeds with his fist trying to hit the Uchiha boy. Sasuke just focused on dodging the blows and it was working as Neji was getting a little frustrated. Sasuke smirked at the boy, your eyes are said to see everything but that's not true. There is one thing that they can't see. And what is that? Neji asked as they didn't stop the fighting. They can't see the future and with my eyes I can see every move you make before you do it, Sasuke smirked. With his eyes he could see the subtle movements in his body telling him what his opponent was thinking of doing. He could see where the chakra was going into his body and it was like the other boy was moving slower. But Kakashi had explained that it was how his brain was interpreting the new information of his eyes. They were moving at the same speed, only his perception of it was different, his mind was actually moving slightly faster than normal. So with this he could see where Neji wanted to strike and he made sure he wasn't anywhere in that area. The only problem for him though, was that he couldn't get past the boy's defense. Neji's eyes would see in a 360-degree arc, meaning that there was no angle that he could get through. There had to be a way through the defense but Sasuke couldn't see it. There was another problem and that was he had to be careful of his attacks. Any attack that he put in he had to be careful that Neji couldn't hit him back with his hands because he would shut them down by attacking his chakra pathways. So if taijutsu was out there was the other ways of fighting. He jumped back throwing several kunai. Neji was surprised by the sudden change in tactics but took out 2 kunai of his own and easily blocked them. After all the practice with Tenten it would take a lot more than that to get through his defense. Sasuke yelled out as he charged with his sword in hand now, it would give him the reach while kept Neji away at a distance. Neji jumped back, he had seen the sword but hadn't thought the boy would be forced to bring it out, but it did make Neji smirk as he had forced him to use it. Although with the sword Sasuke knew he couldn't use any hand seals for jutsus but with this he was keeping the Hyuga boy on his toes as all he had was kunai to block the blows of his sword. Although he was reluctant to admit it, the Hyuga was good. Neji was now seeing firsthand why the Uchiha clan had gained its reputation but he refused to give up fighting. Lee and Naruto were after each other as soon as Guy told them to start. Neither one was wasting any time already charging against each other. Both of them started off with just taijutsu like Sasuke and Neji had. Both boys were fast and furious as their styles were designed to be that way. For Lee, his strong fist style was used to create a lot of external damage to his opponent. Naruto's style was something more original as he had been working on it all his life. It was a mesh of several styles, things he learned from his dad, Anko and even Guy. It was powerful moves, but it was also unpredictable as for Naruto he kept making things up on the fly all the time. Speed and maneuverability were key to it, as it made him hard to hit while on defense, but when he switched to offense he had little in the way of defending. It was complex, but for Naruto it just fit him. He had yet to give it a name as he wanted something really cool for it. Now both boys were eagerly going at it, trading blows with reckless abandon but both loving it. Naruto knew that he was no match for Lee with just limiting himself to taijutsu, but he wanted to see how far he had come against someone like him. But Lee was just too fast, and what bothered Naruto was that he knew the green-clothed boy had on weights on his legs that were much heavier than his. "Yosh, Naruto-kun, your abilities have gotten a lot better," Lee proclaimed. "Yeah, but I'm still not a match for you," Naruto said back. "Then please don't hold back, I want you at your best," Lee told him. "Okay, it's your funeral," her smirked, making over a dozen shadow clones. They all charged Lee, but he simply destroyed them one at a time. As Lee was doing this, Naruto was thinking of his next move and called up one of his special shadow clones. This single clone jumped out in front of Lee and just stopped. Lee was a little confused at the clone as it winked at him, and then suddenly exploded. The force was enough to send up dirt everywhere, blinding the boy for the moment. Then he felt a kick to his front as Naruto had used that distraction to get in a flying kick on Lee. "That was a most excellent move, Naruto-kun, but I will not fall for it a second time," Lee said, charging Naruto again. Naruto went into a set of hand seals before crying out his next jutsu, Wind Style, Air Armor. There was a green molding of air around his body. Lee's fist came flying and Naruto tried to dodge it. Lee had thought he would get a glancing blow until he felt that there was wind around Naruto. It seemed to deflect his fist even more and he saw the bandages on his arms starting to rip up. He jumped back, avoiding a kick by Naruto. Naruto smirked under his mask, "Like it. I just learned it. It's called Air Armor and it covers my body with wind. It's supposed to shred anything that comes in contact with it, but I'm still working on it. For now, unless you hit me directly, you'll just slide off and you'll get damaged because of it." Naruto was proud that he had managed to get some headway in the jutsu, although it was far from perfect. He was more ahead with the air blade, but he didn't want to end up killing Lee by accident. His dad forbade him from using it in sparring until he had more control. But this would help even things out as Lee would be forced to aim for more direct hits, and by the smiling form of Lee he was all up for the challenge. Guy was proud of how well the Genins were doing. He had been thinking that now was the time for them to take the Chunin exams, but seeing them against Kakashi's team, it was obvious that his team was quickly catching up and would be ready for the Chunin exams themselves at this rate. He smiled at the thought of his team and his rival's team both competing in the exams. If this was any indication, Kakashi's team would be a tough one to beat this year. Both teams had a similar setup as he watched them. There were the two prodigies, two very determined kunoichi, and two boys who were geniuses of hard work. The girls were running out of energy first, it seemed. Tenten didn't have the chakra or stamina that Neji or Lee had. The two geniuses were refusing to give the other any slack. It was almost a grudge match and he was a bit worried because of how intense it was getting. Lee and Naruto were having fun with the spar, although both looked a little worse for wear as they were both the type to charge in first no matter what kind of damage they gained. After 15 minutes both Tenten and Sakura had stopped panting and sweating, and so Guy called their match to an end. Both girls nodded to each other, a little respect showing as they went to get something to drink. But the boys kept on fighting, and when 30 minutes had come and gone Guy felt they were getting pretty close to ending things. He decided that they had enough and raised an arm. "That's enough, the rest of you stop," Guy bellowed out. The four stopped, but they didn't look happy at it. "Oh come on, we're just getting started, right Lee?" Naruto asked his partner. "Yes Guy-sensei, please let us continue," Lee asked. Neji and Sasuke, although looked nearly exhausted, were still giving each other determined looks. Neither of them wanted to back down either as there was still no clear winner. Guy shook his head. I think you all have done enough. In fact, I'm proud of my rivals' team to have lasted as long as they could against a more seasoned team. This means that we'll have to increase our training to become even stronger when you next meet. Yes, Guy-sensei, Lee said with tears running down his face. Oh god no, Naruto muttered quickly turning away. Sakura and Sasuke were wondering why when they noticed Neji and Tenten quickly doing the same thing. Then that's when it started, first with Lee and Guy calling out to each other over and over and then they started running towards the other. It was then that suddenly a sunset came out of nowhere and the two were at a beach of all things. They ran into each other hugging as a giant wave crashed against the rocks. Sasuke looked sickened at the image but unfortunately he hadn't turned off his Sharingan. The image was burned into his mind for all time and for years this image would haunt his dreams like it had so many others in the village. Sakura now understood what Naruto meant. She tried to cancel the Genjutsu but to her horror she couldn't. She tried to figure out how he even made it. If she could copy this it would be something that could really throw her enemies off. That is if she could ever get over the image herself. Chapter 33, Mission Team Up. Team 8 was once more in front of the Hokage and his staff as they reported a completed mission. Although it was just a dog walking on, although Kiba didn't mind it so much plus Akamaru got to make some new friends as well. But as Kurenai was making the report he couldn't help but be bored. He was sick and tired of these kid missions and wanted something better than this. When the Hokage heard the report he was looking for other missions to give them, still all D-ranked as well. Iruka who was there filling in before the new school season started up read off all the lame, in Kiba's mind missions he just couldn't take it anymore. He knew that Hinata was too kind-hearted to say anything and Shino never said much anyway so it was all up to him. Oh come on can't we do something better? Kiba asked. Kiba, Kurenai snapped at him and he did flinch but he still didn't seem deterred. But we've done these kinds of missions for months now. Aren't we ready for a real mission yet? This kind of stuff is lame and we can't get any stronger by doing this stuff. Can't we at least do a C-ranked mission? Kiba that's enough, Kurenai told him in a stern manner. I know you want to do more but I have to think of the entire team and not just you. Kiba didn't like it one bit, so you're saying as a team we're weak. Kurenai noticed the reactions that got out of her other team members. Shino arched an eyebrow at that, which spoke volumes she learned. Although she wasn't sure what the young bug user was actually thinking. Hinata looked down and she knew what the young girl was thinking, she was most likely blaming herself for this like always. Kurenai mentally sighed thinking about all of this, her team had great teamwork but they lacked experience. Plus she wasn't sure how they would deal in a life and death situation and would like to train them a bit more. However everyone's attention was suddenly attracted to loud sounds coming from behind them. Where are you going? We have to wait. Came a female voice. Oh come on like the old man won't see us and besides we finished that lame mission anyway. Said an equally loud and familiar voice. The door was thrown open as a disheveled looking Naruto as he came walking in, his team following him. Sasuke with his hands in his pockets looking bored, Kakashi with his usual lazy stance and Sakura looking worried. Hey old man what's the deal by having us chase that demonic furball again? Naruto demanded of the Hokage. Naruto. Sakura scolded him grabbing him by the ear and then bowing to the Hokage, sorry Hokage-sama. I take it you didn't like the last mission Naruto. The Hokage said smirking at the young blonde. He managed to pull himself out of the ear-hold Sakura had in him. Yeah, you know that stupid cat is insane next time I see that thing I'm pinning its hide to a wall. Naruto stop it. Sakura told him making him flinch and cover his ear again. But Sakura-chan these missions are lame, I want to go on another C-rank mission again, Naruto whined to her. Even though they all remembered how the last mission had gone on, but after the time to heal from it they were all much better. They were back up to being able to do actual missions again and Naruto was getting antsy again. Oh come on, Kiba sighed and for the first time Naruto noticed them in the room. Kiba turned to Kurenai, come on sensei they got to do a C-rank mission already and now they want another one. We're ready for this and we deserve a shot at least. Well actually it got bumped up to AB so officially we haven't actually been on a C-rank mission, Naruto told him smirking a little bit under his mask. He smirked a bit more at seeing Kiba's eyebrow to that tick thing when he was really getting mad too. See, they already had a B, so the C rank mission is ours. Short stuff, Kiba said to him. What did you call me? Naruto yelled at him. You heard me runt. Kiba smiled, knowing that Naruto was sensitive about his height. Some of the girls in their class had been taller than him, and Kiba made sure that he never heard the end of it either. Besides, it was riling Naruto up too, just as he knew that Naruto did the same to him. It was just an odd thing the two of them did in their friendship to one another. His sister often described the two of them as two dogs trying to get the alpha position while both trying to get a bone. That had been lost on Naruto when he heard it, but to Kiba and anyone else in his clan that made perfect sense. Kurenai and Kakashi shared a knowing look. They both knew how this could turn out and how Kiba and Naruto got when they were together for too long. First the name calling, then the arguing, and then both boys would be soon on the ground trying out every grapple hold they could think of. Normally they would let the boys do it just to let them blow off energy, but being in the Hokage's office was not the time and place for it. Naruto, that's enough, Kakashi said, using his father tone of voice in order to get him to listen. Kiba, back down now, Kurenai said, almost like a command to a dog. When she first tried that tone she thought he might be insulted, but his mother assured her that that was how you had to handle him. And it normally worked as well. She guessed it was an Inuzuka thing. All that time spending with dogs, she guessed there would be some transference. Now that she thought about it, she guessed the same was true with Shino and his clan as well. She never thought about that before and wondered if other clans in the ninja world that bonded with animals had the same thing going on with them as well. But that was something to think on at another time, as Iruka cleared his throat after the boys had finally settled down. Well, we only have one C rank mission anyway, and the pay for it only means one team can go, Iruka said, looking at the file. It's a simple bodyguard duty from here to the country of Wave. Well, then we should get this since we haven't done a C rank, Kiba said, crossing his arms trying to make his point again. Hey, no way, I'm getting stuck with stupid D rank mission like said, Naruto shot back at the taller boy. Iruka sighed, I'm not sure either team should do this, Hokage-sama. Given what happened the last time the Genins went on a C rank mission. He said, referring to the mission Naruto had told Kiba about. He really liked these kids and he didn't want them to get hurt. He had seen how they were after the last mission, and it was only now that Team 7 seemed to be back to normal. The Hokage nodded his head, knowing what he was talking about as well. Although it wasn't uncommon for mission ratings to change, given what happened to Team 7 and the emotional shock that it gave them, he was reluctant to give it to either team. Team 7 had just got over things and he wanted to make sure that they were truly alright. Then he had Team 8, who was still green, as it were, in dangerous situations. So he wasn't sure if he should give this to either team or just assign a couple of chunin for it. Naruto frowned behind his mask. He really wanted to go on a new mission, so why couldn't they do this? He knew how the last mission went, but if the client could only afford one team, then how could he make sure his team was picked? He looked over at Team 8 and saw that Hinata was looking down at the floor deep in thought. He knew that expression on her face. She was doing that self-doubt thing again. Maybe she needed this mission as well. He knew that she had a need to prove herself just like he did, but for her she had to do it for her entire clan. Hey old man, if the client can't pay for more, what if we all split the pay between us? Naruto asked. The Hokage looked at the boy. What do you mean? Well, what if both teams go and we all take half of the normal cost? I mean, I don't really need the money and mostly everyone comes from a clan here except Sakura-chan and myself, but I'm not hurting for cash like I said. Sakura-chan I know isn't either. What about the rest of you? There were a round of negatives from that. Everyone from a clan usually had decent money anyway. Especially Hinata, since her father was head of the most prestigious clan in the village as well. Sasuke had inherited everything from his clan as well too. So it really wasn't a question of money for them at all. The Hokage thought about this. If they were willing to take a pay cut, he could send both teams out. Since Team 8 needed more experience and Team 7 had the experience, it would balance out. Plus, if things got too dangerous like last time, they would have numbers on their side. They would also have two Jonins with them as well. As he thought about it, he also thought about how it would be to deal with the kids if he said no to them. Naruto and Kiba would be the most trouble, and the last thing he needed was to deal with them acting out like that. Plus, the client might feel a bit better about the number of ninja he was getting, so in the end he decided that it might be good to agree to the idea. Very well, then I'll make this a joint mission between Team 7 and 8. The Hokage said finally as he started on the paperwork. The reactions varied, although the genin looked pleased at the thought of going on this mission. Hinata herself felt great about this for two reasons. First was that she was going on her first C-rank mission. This would be her first real mission and first time outside of the village. The second was the fact she would be spending time with Naruto on the mission as well. She blushed a bit as she thought of that, and she hoped that she could work up the courage to express her true feelings for him. For a while now she had been wondering if she should or shouldn't say anything. But a few days ago Naruto had been kind of depressed, and when she asked why, he told them about the sparring with Neji's team and how Sakura had said she was seeing Sasuke. She knew that Naruto had a crush on his teammate, but although she felt bad that he was depressed over it, she knew now that with him not chasing after the girl anymore, she had a chance now. So who is the client? Kurenai asked, breaking Hinata out of her thoughts. Ah yes, please send in Tazuna, the Hokage said. A moment later the door opened and an old man with gray hair, a beard with glasses stepped out. He was dressed somewhat poorly and smelled strongly of alcohol as well. He staggered a bit, showing that he had been drinking before the meeting as he looked at the people in front of him. He seemed to be studying them and forming an opinion. HN, a bunch of damn kids. The two adults, I don't mind, but what's with this? I thought I was paying for ninjas, not a punch of wet behind the ears children. Tazuna said. Hey. Both Kiba and Naruto shot at the man, as well as a cold look from Shino and a small glare from Sasuke as well. We are ninja. Great, a boy that smells like a dog and a midget in a mask thinking they are playing ninja, the old man sighed seeing the two boys. Kakashi sighed at this. The mission hadn't even officially started and already he knew that this was going to be a very long one. He made a mental note to make sure he brought some aspirin, as he could already tell that Kiba and Naruto would not get along with this man on the mission, and it was a long way to wave as well. Later, by the large gates of Konoha, both teams were getting ready, well, the majority of them. There were still 2 members still not counted for, and they were the Hitaki men. So far both were an hour later and Kurenai was getting impatient. She remembered that Kakashi was generally late as some sort of personal rule for some reason. However, she wasn't sure if Naruto picked up on that habit. Do you two have any idea where the Hitakis are? Kurenai asked the 2 members of Team 7. Sasuke just shrugged as Sakura looked a bit embarrassed for her late teammates. I honestly don't know. Naruto is usually one time, but our sensei, well. Sakura trailed off, not sure what to say. Hey guys. Everyone looked to see Naruto walking with a backpack, happily walking up to them. Kurenai looked at the young boy with her arms crossed as she walked up to him. He stopped when the women got in front of him. He knew that look. Enko got that look in her eyes too when she got annoyed with him. He gave a smile up to him, closing both eyes, making him look like a mini Kakashi in a way. Where were you and where's your father? Kurenai asked him. Don't know, Naruto shrugged. I mean, he's normally late, so I decided to take it easy and get in some ramen before we left. Naruto then looked to see the annoyed looks on his friends. What? You all know my dad is always late, so why bother showing up on time? He's got a system, unless it's life and death he won't be on time. If it's a mission he's usually an hour late, and if it's training or something he can blow off for later he can go from 2 to 3 hours late. So instead of just waiting around for his lazy ass, I went to get a snack. Kurenai sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Although she hadn't had any missions with Kakashi before, she knew his reputation, and so she should have expected of this. It also didn't help that for the past hour they had to keep their client happy while they waited. That was already giving her a migraine, as the old man and Kiba were already at each other's throats. So your father should be here soon then? She asked him. Yep, he shouldn't be too far away actually. He told her. Naruto then saw Hinata and he needed someone to talk to. He'd been kind of depressed losing out to Sasuke, and although he hadn't really talked with Sakura about it, he didn't feel up to talking with her. So he decided to walk over and join his best friend. He gave her a warm greeting as she blushed and greeted him back. Hinata was glad for this mission already. This would be the longest time she would ever spend with Naruto in her life, and maybe on this trip she could finally work up the courage to talk to him. The 2 young teens started talking, mainly just about ordinary things, although they were being watched by Kurenai slightly. Kurenai was well aware of the young girl's feelings for the boy, and watching them now she could see just how badly the young girl had it. She remembered being at that age, so unsure of yourself, and then when boys came into the picture things got very complicated. Looking at them, she had to admit it was very cute image. It was just too bad that Naruto didn't seem to notice. Although how he never noticed was something that she couldn't figure out, but then again Naruto seemed to have an odd intellect. At some points he could catch on or figure things out in surprising ways, but sometimes he could be so dense it was frustrating. The boy was just totally unpredictable, but there had to be a way to get him to listen. Also she wondered why not one bothered to tell him. Well, Sasuke, she reasoned, didn't care. Sakura had her own reasons. He and his teammates she had asked, too embarrassed if Naruto found out that she liked him. Kurenai shook her head at just how complicated things could get in relationships, but as Anko always told her, that was part of the fun of it all. Perhaps she could use this mission to help the young girl out. Hinata was turning out to be very precious to her. The young girl had such a pure heart that Kurenai couldn't help but care for her. She cared for her entire team, and that was why she had been nervous about taking this mission. She didn't want to see them hurt. Maybe she shouldn't take things so easy on them, but this was her first team and her first job as a Jonin. It was then that finally Kakashi decided to show up. He gave some lame excuse as usual, but Kurenai just tuned him out. She knew the kinds of excuses he always had from meetings anyway, and that they weren't true at all. Hyuga compound. Hiyashi Hyuga was in his study working on several clan affairs that needed him to look at. Being a clan head was always a busy task. He had to not only have the usual political meetings and dinners with the elders, and of course with certain business contacts that his clan dealt with. There was also the paperwork such as request forms. New buildings to be created, more supplies needed, wages needed to be handed out, and so on. Plus there were those that needed to be sent to the Hokage for missions that clients asked for their special talents specifically, so he needed to send over those that fit the missions. Some of his clan were already in the actual ninja forces like his daughter and nephew, but not all their clan went through the academy. So some Hyuga although were trained as ninja, not all of them were actual ninjas. These were sometimes hired around the Hokage since none wanted any written information about them being hired, and in turn the Hokage turned a blind eye as it were to this for ninjas, trained persons who could be sent on missions that couldn't be labeled as official. Plausible deniability in other words, but it did help with the clan's income other than from trading. At the moment he was also looking at a marriage proposal between two members of the main branch. Apparently 2 members of the clan wanted to put their eldest children into an arranged marriage. Hiyashi never was one for these, but it was clan tradition, and as head he had to uphold those traditions. So far everything was in order and he sighed it off. He just hoped the 2 children grew to love each other, as these things were never made with the children's well-being at heart. That brought his thoughts to his 2 daughters. Most times in the past both daughters would have been promised to someone already, but many knew of Hinata's gentle nature, so many thought she wasn't worthy. Another issue was that unless something happened to Hinata, Hanabi would be put into the branch house, and no one in the main branch would want to enter into an agreement with someone on their way down. And no one in the branch would ever think of asking for the hand of someone in the main house. Hiyashi sighed at how the clan politics could get. Sometimes he wished to just wipe the slate clean, but he couldn't. That was the reason he was pushing Hinata so hard. Weakness in the clan, even if it was just perceived as weakness, had a way of making trouble for you. She was coming along, but she still needed to catch up, or else something could happen that he didn't want to happen. If Hinata was found unfit to lead, she would have the seal put on her and cast out of the main house, and Hanabi be put in her place. The trouble was, if Hinata couldn't get strong enough before Hanabi was old enough, Hanabi would have the seal placed on her then with both daughters in the branch family, and no air things would get ugly for the clan. A new head of the clan would be made, and among the main branch there was no clear succession. That would mean infighting that could lead to a civil war with the Hyuga. He had to prepare and avoid that, but his power could only give Hanabi a certain amount of time. A knock on his door got his attention as he called whoever it was to enter. He saw his twin brother with his youngest daughter enter the room. She gave the formal bow as she entered with her uncle. "Yes, what is it?" he asked of them. "I was just coming to inform you that I will be leaving the compound today," Hanabi said. "Oh, and why is that?" Normally you didn't have to give reasons, but given her position and what happened to Hinata years ago, both daughters had to make it known when they were leaving and when they might be back for security reasons. "I was just going to meet Konohamaru. He said he wanted me to meet 2 friends he made," she explained. Hiyashi ran the name through his mind and he remembered who that was. It was the third Hokage's grandchild. He remembered that the young boy apparently had met the resident masked boy that had her eldest daughter's attention. From what he heard of the dinner conversations with the family, the young boy seemed to be having a case of hero worship for Naruto. You seem to be seeing a lot of the boy lately, he said, slightly judging the reaction out of her. He's my first friend, father, at least outside of the clan. He's a nice boy and he's fun. Hanabi wasn't sure what was going on with her father. But he seemed to be studying her for a bit. Very well then, enjoy your time, he told her, and she gave a small smile and bowed before leaving. After she left, Hizashi judged his elder brother for a bit before speaking. What are you planning, brother? What do you mean? He asked, looking neutral at him. Don't give me that you never were able to lie to me, Hizashi smirked at him. You're planning something. I'm thinking of seeing if the Sarutobi family would be interested in a possible union with Hanabi. Hizashi's eyebrows lifted up to his brown, which for a Hoiga was a very surprised expression. You sure about this? She knows the boy and seems to like him. I know it's not much, but if they accept, she doesn't have to go through with it. Hiyashi told him. If she was promised to a high-ranking family like the Sarutobi, then the elders wouldn't dare put the seal on her. It would be an insult to the Sarutobi family. It would protect her at least long enough to give Hinata time to become strong enough to lead and protect her sister. Hizashi read the undertone there. He knew that his brother tried to save him from the fate of the seal that was on his brow now as well, but he had failed in that. He never had any malice towards him, but it was obvious that his elder twin still felt like he had failed his younger brother. Well, it's a good plan, and who knows, she may even fall for the boy. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know that Hinata has left the village. Hiyashi nodded his thanks. He had been unable to see her off because of business, but he silently hoped that his daughter would be okay. She was so much like his lost wife, it hurt at times, but he had to remain strong. I just hope this mission will help her. She still has a long way to go and time is starting to run out. Within a few years I might not be able to protect them anymore and they will have to learn to be strong and stand on their own. Hizashi nodded his head gravely. He knew full well what he meant. He had been there when his son had gotten his seal, and it hurt to see his son with that mark. Although at the time Neji didn't think much of it, but he knew that at any time a main house member could give his son immense pain, and the only reason it hadn't happened was because of how closely related Neji was to Hiyashi. I pray for her safe return, and she is with the Hitaki boy as well, Hizashi told him. You know how he can always get her to try harder and reach new levels. Maybe on this mission he can help her find some more strength. Hiyashi nodded again. That was one thing he was hoping for as well. The boy was unpredictable and yet seemed to bring out the best in people. The boy also tried his hardest at everything, and if he kept that up he could one day be a good suitor for his daughter. But he had to prove himself, and already some of the elders didn't like the boy for what was inside of him. But so far Naruto had proven himself to a few when he saved his daughter all those years ago. If he could keep that up, and if either he got a clue or if his daughter could tell him her feelings, things might work out. He smiled sadly, knowing how much his wife would have loved to have been here to see this. But he could enjoy it for her in the meantime. Chapter 34, Trouble on the Road. Kurenai sighed to herself as she was walking in the lead with Kakashi. He was reading his book just like always. She didn't like the fact that he brought out that book in front of children, let alone in front of his own son. She gave up on trying to get him to put it away, although she also had to worry about Naruto, Kiba and their client. Normally Naruto and Kiba argued out of their friendship, but when you adding in Tazuna, with the amount of yelling and arguing those three did, it was amazing that people from Water Country didn't hear them, and they were an island nation far away. Sometimes she wondered if she was a Jonin sensei or a surrogate mother at times. Kakashi was little help, although she had a suspicion that he was enjoying her uneasiness. Hey, Sasuke-kun, Sakura asked as she walked up next to her teammate. I was wondering after the mission you want to go on a date sometime. Sasuke sighed mentally. He really didn't like it when Sakura acted like this. Why couldn't she act more like a real kunoichi, like the leader of Team 8? Kurenai was the perfect example of the kind of ninja a female should be. Someone that was professional and powerful was the type of girl he looked for, but apparently there were none in his age group. Although that Tenten girl he met was pretty close to the type he looked for. But he wasn't exactly looking for any type of relationship just yet, he still needed to get stronger. He had been getting stronger but he still wasn't good enough to take down Itachi. Sasuke noticed that she was waiting for an answer. Remember that favor you owe me for pretending to be your boyfriend in front of that weird guy in green. Oh yeah, Sakura had actually hoped he forgot, but whatever it was she would do it. After all, she gave her word, and one thing she admired about Naruto was that he always kept his word. Besides, if she went back on her word, how could anyone trust her ever again? Sasuke looked at her seriously. In return for that favor, I don't want you to ever ask me out again, ever. He walked off, leaving Sakura behind, who had just stopped in her tracks. She felt so crushed at that moment as her whole body just seemed to sag. She couldn't believe that he had just asked her for that. She had to do it as it was the favor, but she never expected him to do something like that. She started walking again when she saw that she was going to get left behind, but her mind was elsewhere at the moment. Had she just lost any change with Sasuke now? Why doesn't he like me? Sakura wondered. Damn it, we should never had made that deal. Inner Sakura screamed out. Does he not like me? I mean, does he think that I'm ugly or something? Sakura asked herself. She was thinking of her forehead and still remembered all the teasing she had gotten from it when she had been younger. Did he think that her forehead made her look like a freak? All the old self-doubts started to rise up in her again. Even after all this time, there was a part of her that was still that scared little girl with no friends who ended up going home crying from being bullied. Ino had helped her to grow out of it, mostly as had her other friends, but it was hard to get over some complexes. She walked on in silence as the self-doubts started to eat away at her confidence. Hinata was with Naruto and she was beaming on the inside. She couldn't believe that she was on a mission with him. Although at the moment he seemed to be sulking after Kurenai basically made sure that he and Kiba were in opposite ends of the column with their client in the middle. She smiled at how he was childishly crossing his arms, and she knew he was pouting behind his mask. I can't believe we're being treated like kids, Naruto muttered to himself. It's that old drunk's fault anyway, he keeps calling me short. I'm not short. I just haven't hit my growth spur yet, and when I do I'll be as tall as dad and then people will stop calling me short. Hinata giggled at this and Naruto turned his attention back to her. He smiled at her. If there was one nice thing on this trip, it was that he had his best friend here. He felt more at ease with her around here as well. He was thinking about something and maybe she could help him out. Hey Hinata-chan, can I ask you something from a girl's point of view? Huh? Oh okay, what is it, Naruto-kun? He scratched the back of his head. Well, I know some things about girls, but apparently I don't know enough. He had read through his dad's collection, and although a few things still caused him to blush red, and it was how he had learned about the birds and bees from. He learned how to flirt, how to compliment, but given he had lost Sakura to Sasuke, he thought that he must have been missing something. What do girls really like in a boy? I mean, how can you get a girl to like you? Hinata blushed red all over her face at this. She started to fidget with her fingers again as she looked down at the ground. Well, it's different for each girl. Some like strong boys, others like sensitive types, others like those that are carrying, Hinata told him. Naruto sighed as this was more complicated than he thought. Although he most likely had a better idea than most boys his age on some things to do with girls, he still didn't understand them. It would be years later when he finally figured out that no man could figure out a female totally. But at this point he was just trying to figure out why he lost out to Sasuke. Listening to Hinata made it seem that maybe he just wasn't Sakura's type. Although why she liked emo jerks with littler personality he never understood. He just sighed in defeat that maybe he and Sakura weren't meant to be, although he would still be there for her like all friends. He would stop bugging her about things like dates. She always gave him a maybe, but nothing much more than that. Maybe it was best to just be friends with her, and that was why she did that. She didn't want to ruin their friendship. Naruto felt like slapping his face. So that's why she never went out with me. She didn't want to ruin our friendship. It's like with me and Hinata-chan, she wouldn't want me to ruin our friendship either. Man, I should have thought of this earlier. Now it all makes sense. She's not friends with Sasuke really, so she went after him, but we've been friends for years. But now what am I going to do? I mean, I didn't know girls like different types of guys, so how do I know what types there are? I know, I'll ask Hinata what she likes in a boy, that will give me an idea. Hey Hinata-chan, what types of boys do you like? Naruto asked. What? She said, her eyes widening. I just want to know what you like in a boy, Naruto told her. Hinata's heart was racing as her mind started to work out why he was asking. Is he asking me because he wants to know if I like him? Does he really like me and he wants to make me notice him? What do I tell him? Hinata was fidgeting a bit more as she was really nervous at this point. She eventually decided on just going with how she felt about Naruto, what she liked about him. Well, I like boys that are caring to their friends, who always stand up for them and is always there for them. I like boys that are fun to be around with good sense of humor and who always make those around them happy. I like boys who are courageous and strong too. Naruto thought about that. He tried to think of someone like that but he was coming up with a blank. He didn't know anyone like that unless it was someone in the Hyuga clan or a village boy. He wasn't sure why, but the thought of some mysterious boy that Hinata liked didn't sit well with him. Then he thought about Hinata kissing some boy and he felt his jaw clench for some reason. He blinked a few times and pushed the thoughts aside. He didn't understand why he felt like that as she was just a friend, right? As the group walked on, Kurenai noticed a puddle of water on the road. Normally it wouldn't be odd, but it was the only one on the road and there hadn't been any rain for 3 days. She focused on it and noticed the illusion wrapped around it. She tensed as she was getting ready to strike when she felt Kakashi's fingers on her hand. She felt his fingers start to quickly tap out a message. It was one of the few ways a ninja would communicate with each other when they couldn't talk. The message was short, but when she put it together in her head, her eyes snapped to him. She couldn't believe that he wanted to test out their teams like that. He didn't show any signs of anything other than reading his book. Kurenai was thinking of going against it, but then the thought of why he would do this to his own team came into her mind. After their last big mission, it took time for his genins to heal, and so then the real reason he wanted them not to interfere hit her. He needed to see if his team was truly ready to be back in the field. You could prepare all you want, but unless they actually faced real danger, he couldn't tell if they were over the last mission. She also thought of her own team. Kakashi's had gone through something nasty for the first time and she didn't want her own team to go through that. She eventually came to the decision to let Kakashi do it his way for now, but the moment things got too dangerous, she was stepping in. Just as they were passing the puddle, that was when the two ninjas struck. They like to have been known as the Demon Brothers, a couple of rogue ninja from Mist. They have been told the old man had gone to Konoha for help. At first they were worried, but the old man wouldn't have enough for a Jonin or a more experienced team. When they saw 2 Genin teams, they decided to stick with the original plan. They would have to take out the 2 Jonins fast. If they didn't, they wouldn't stand a chance. So as soon as the kids' teachers were in range, they jumped out. They liked to use poison-tipped claws with a razor-sharp chain connecting them. As twins they had always fought together and their teamwork was top-notch. Their chain managed to get the 2 Jonin and they ripped them apart. It turned into pure chaos after that. People yelled out as it was nothing but confusion at the moment. One of the demon brothers took sight of Hinata. The young girl had never been in a real combat or real danger like this. She suddenly had a flashback to when she had been kidnapped as a small child. She remembered how scared she had been and she just froze. The brother chuckled to himself as he saw an easy kill and ran at the girl. Hinata, get down. Naruto yelled at her, but she was frozen solid. She wanted to move but her body wouldn't let it. Naruto's father told him all kinds of stories on how some people react to their first time in danger. Hinata had frozen and if he didn't do anything she was going to die. He jumped at her, grabbing her with his arms as he pulled her to the ground with him. He grunted, feeling something slice his forearm, but he didn't pay any attention to it. Hinata, are you okay? He asked, still protecting her. Hinata looked at him as he focus came back into reality. She nodded her head and Naruto nodded back as he quickly got up and pulled out the sword on his back, getting ready for a fight. Kiba already had to dodge one of the enemy ninja as Akamaru tried to bite down on the leg of that ninja. He quickly jumped back and tried to kick the small white dog, but he was faster and jumped out of the way. Kiba tried to get in close with his kunai, but the man blocked it with his claws and was suddenly pulled back by his partner. The ninja sailed through the air as he went to attack another in their party. Sakura found herself between the razor chain between the 2 ninja. She quickly got out her tonfas and placed them up in front of her, with the length of the weapon running parallel with her arms. They protected her arms as the chain grinded against the metallic weapons, making sparks fly out. She had to close her eyes to protect them. Shino raised an arm and from the loose sleeve of his gray coat many tiny black insects started to fly out. Like Kiba's clan and their dogs, he had a mental link with his bugs and told them to attack and drain the two of them of their chakra. Sasuke was already attacking them with his own sword, but the brothers were proving a little faster than he was. He wanted to take off the weights on himself, but the enemy weren't giving him a change, so he just kept up with the attacks. He activated his eyes as they turned into the red Sharingan that his clan was known for. The moments of his enemies became easier to see and predict. Everything became sharper and clearer when he used his eyes like this, and it was with this he noticed Naruto making hand seals, and not just any ones either. He can't be serious in using that, he thought to himself. Everyone clear the area. Sasuke gave them a warning. There were a few that weren't certain why Sasuke said that, but they moved out of the area anyway because they all figured out something was up. Naruto finished his jutsu as he made a couple of clones, and to those that knew him that was odd as he usually made a gang of them. The two clones each went after one of the brothers. They didn't see much point in worrying and tried to attack the clones. What they didn't know was that although Naruto could make a huge number of shadow clones, it took a lot more energy to make exploding shadow clones. The two clones exploded, sending the twin ninja brothers off flying. Although they flew in two different directions, the chain that connected them snapped them back together as they slammed back into each other in mid-air and landed onto the ground. It was actually kind of funny, and if it wasn't a life and death fight, the kids might have found it pretty funny. "Did you kill them?" Sakura asked Naruto, looking at the smoking ninja. "I don't think so," Naruto said to her, looking at the bodies. Although he got over killing that last ninja, he didn't want to have to do it again too soon. When they heard a groan coming out of the two of them and saw them move, they figured out they were still alive. With them down, it was easy for Shino to command his bugs to swam them and eat up enough of their chakra so they wouldn't pose a threat anymore. "Geez, Naruto, give us some warning before you do something like that," Kiba told him. Naruto scratched the back of his head. "Hey, sorry about that, but hey, we got them right." But what about Kurenai and Kakashi-sensei?" Hinata asked, worried. "What about us?" Everyone turned to see Kakashi leaning up against a tree with Kurenai standing next to him. "Why, you're alive." Kiba was shocked by it. "Kiba, didn't you notice the replacement technique we both used?" Kurenai said, pointing to the pieces of wood that were where the remains of their bodies should have been. Kiba smacked himself in the face and groaned. He had been so taken by surprise he hadn't noticed that they had replaced themselves with the wood at the last moment. That move had saved countless ninja from nearly dying a lot of time through history. "Now then, I think you all did a good job," Kakashi said. He was proud of how well his team had done. They seemed to have gotten over the last hard mission. He got out a piece of rope from his backpack as he walked over to the brothers. "Now I think it's time we deal with the two of them," Kakashi said. When the two demon brothers were tied up, everyone was gathering their things. Akamaru was walking up to the two ninja. Something was off about their scent that he had noticed. There was a strong odor about them. He started to sniff, and the strange scent seemed to be only on the claws. While his master trained as a ninja, he too was trained by the older dogs of the pack. They told him what to sniff out, what harmful scents were, as well as other things. Akamaru didn't know what type it was, but he could smell the poison on the metal. He turned to his master and barked out the warning. Kiba turned to look at his partner. Like all of his clan, they had a bond with their animals. It was kind of like a bloodline ability in a way, how they bonded with their dogs, that allowed a deeper understanding with them and of other dogs in their clan had. "What do you mean poison?" Kiba asked as his puppy yelped out a few more times. "Hey Kurenai-sensei. Akamaru says these guys had poison on their claws." "Everyone, was anyone hurt?" Kurenai asked them all. Naruto looked at the place where he had been hit protecting Hinata. He hadn't noticed with the adrenaline going, but he was cut. He wasn't sure if he should be worried or not. He knew that the stupid fox inside of him healed injuries, but he had never been poisoned before. "Naruto-kun." Hinata cried out, seeing him look at the bleeding wound. She automatically went to check on it as she was more worried than nervous at this point. She knew that he had gotten that protecting her. Because she had hesitated, he had been hurt. All that she was thinking was that it was her fault because she still wasn't strong enough. Kurenai and Kakashi walked over as they watched Naruto roll up his sleeve of his shirt to show the wound. Kakashi looked at it as Hinata got out the medical supplies. Well, it looks like we're going to have to get Naruto an antidote, but I'm not carrying any anti-poisons on me. How about your team, Kurenai? Kakashi asked her. She shook her head as her team didn't carry that. She didn't think it would be that dangerous, and some ninja used special poisons that needed a medical facility to cure. So what does that mean? Kiba asked. It means we'll have to go back to Konoha to get him cured, Shino said. Kiba didn't take well to that. It was his team's first big mission and he wanted to complete it. Shino didn't say much, but you could somewhat tell the bug user wasn't too happy with the thought of failing the mission as well. Sasuke scowled at going back. He didn't say anything, but the boy looked like he didn't like this any more than anyone else. Naruto could see this and looked at the wound on his arm. He could remember a few ways to deal with poison, and there was one thing he could do. He didn't want to turn back either. They had a job to do and he always saw things to the end. They didn't run when things got tough last time, and although the ending of that mission was something he would carry for the rest of his life, he had grown from it. No, we're not going back, Naruto said loudly, getting everyone's attention. We took on this mission and we're not quitting because I don't quit. We agreed to protect him and take the old drunk home, and I'm not going to be the one that makes us fail this mission. He drew out a kunai and stabbed it into his forearm, to the shock of everyone there. The blood slowly started to flow out of the wound as the poison was being drained out of it. He learned this trick from stories from his dad's day in Anbu and from a lesson at school. Although it did hurt, he could take the pain. I swear that I will never fail, that I'll always go on no matter what, Naruto said, using his own blood as a way to seal his own deal with himself. Kakashi blinked a few times and smiled under his mask. Naruto sure was surprising, and he was proud of his son's attitude. He always did see things through to the end no matter what, although now he was wondering what the bridge builder wasn't telling them. Those two had been Chunin level ninja, and someone doesn't hire that kind of ninja for a simple old man. Well, Naruto, that's all well and good, but you might want to put a bandage on that before you bleed to death, Kakashi said offhandedly. Huh. Naruto looked at his bleeding arm for a second. Someone get me something to stop it with, he said frantically as Hinata tried to use the medical supplies she had on him. It wasn't easy to calm Naruto down and for Hinata to use the bandages and medical salve she had on her. Kurenai just wasn't sure what to make of Naruto. At one moment he was like a different person, and then he could switch at the drop of a hat. She had known him for a bit, but Enko knew him better than she did. She sighed as she let Hinata dress the boy's wound. She noticed that Kakashi was motioning her over to him. So she walked over to him as he then spoke to her in a soft voice. I think we should have a talk with our client. Her eyes hardened as she nodded, and they both looked at the old man. She too had figured out that there was more going on here than he had told them about, and she wanted answers. This was supposed to be a simple C-ranked mission, and now it was already getting close to a B rank. Something wasn't right here, and she wanted to know what they had gotten themselves into. They walked up to their client as Kakashi gave him a solid hard look with his single eye. He may be a lazy jonin at times, but when things were serious you would have hard pressed to find someone as good, powerful, or as scary as Kakashi when he got serious. I think we need to have a little talk with you, Tazuna, Kakashi said in a cold tone. The old man looked at the jonin and then to Kurenai, who had an equally cold and hard look in her red eyes. He swallowed, knowing that he had lied about being protected by only bandits. He would have to tell them everything now, and he only hoped that they wouldn't just leave him on the road undefended. If they did, he didn't have enough money to hire any more ninja and he would never make it back home. Alright, he sighed as they led him off to the side for a talk. Hinata was finishing up taking care of Naruto's injury. She was putting the final touches on the dressing on his arm. Naruto smiled a little at how much care she was taking with it. Although he knew by now that the stupid fox would most likely have healed up his injury, he didn't want to have to tell her why she didn't have to worry. She actually wasn't bad at this, and the salve she put on did help ease the pain too. You're pretty good at this, Hinata-chan, he told her. She blushed and her hands shook a little, but she managed to finish. Naruto-kun. I'm sorry. Huh, sorry for what? Because of me you got hurt. She looked down, not meeting his eyes. She just focused on helping him. She was still a burden, it seemed. Her first time out and she froze, and Naruto ended up hurt because of it. She thought she had improved, but when everyone needed her she had failed them. Hinata, what happened can happen to anyone. My dad told me countless times that he's seen people do the exact same thing first time in a real battle. Naruto told her. You didn't, she whispered looking down as she finished her work. Yes, I did, he told her gently. She looked up in shock, she couldn't believe that Naruto of all people had frozen. He started to explain the first time he really had been scared. When I was little a couple of bad guys tried to kidnap me too, Uncle Guy saved me but I was scared. I couldn't sleep alone and had nightmares for a long time after it. It took me time but I got over it, but it's something I can never forget it either. And Naruto-kun. Hinata trailed off, she never knew that the same thing that had happened to her had happened to him. He never really talked about his life before they met, he kept saying that it wasn't important. Then Naruto looked at her smiling with both eyes closed. Anyways, so all you have to do is get stronger, you fall you just pick yourself up and keep trying. You never give up because if you do then you can't get better and I know you won't let the same thing happen again. She smiled at him and gave him a small nod. He always made her feel better about herself and for some strange reason she always felt she could become a better person with his help. Just then the adults returned with Tazuna looking like a dog that got scolded by its owner. Both Kurenai and Kakashi told the old man to tell their teams exactly what he told them. The old man sighed as he told them that he didn't have enough money to hire more protection and had lied about the dangers. He was building a bridge to connect his land with the mainland. It would improve the economy and lots of the land's resources were going into this project. A criminal named Gato had a stranglehold on his land, he was bleeding them dry. This bridge was the only way to help the country as they couldn't rid themselves of the man. He was on his way back to complete the bridge and had found out that Gato had hired people to kill him. Without him the bridge would never be built and his people would never get out from under Gato's control. With the story out of the way, Kakashi asked both teams if they wanted to continue the mission. They had been lied to about what the mission was, so they were within their rights to refuse the mission now. But Naruto didn't like that one bit. He stood up and said that he'd never back down from a mission no matter what happened. Kiba was just as eager as well and he too wanted to continue. Sasuke nodded his head as he didn't feel like quitting as well. Sakura looked a bit uncertain, but with both team members for it she couldn't abandon them, so she agreed too. Shino gave a silent nod and Hinata didn't want to keep going as well. She needed to prove to herself that she could do this. If she couldn't then she didn't deserve to be a ninja. Kurenai sighed. She knew that she couldn't talk them out of it, but she did convince Kakashi to send one of his summoned dogs back to the village with a message. One to have Hunter Nins or ABNU to come and pick up the demon brothers and to inform the Hokage that the mission seemed to be a bit more than it was. She just hoped that she didn't live to regret the decision to continue this mission. Chapter 35, Mist and Ice. The teams made their way onto Tazuna's home. After the encounter with that last group of ninja they were being a bit more on guard this time around. Little was said on their way to the village, although he told them they would need to hire a boat to get them to his village as the bridge of course wasn't completed enough for them to travel on. They mainly tried to keep going on being quick, hoping not to draw out too much attention. The atmosphere was a bit tense as they made their way. They entered into a forested area that was near the large body of water that separated Wave Country. There was a dirt road that they were taking. It was an old trade route to the country, although no one really used it anymore thanks to Gato. Kakashi didn't like to take this route as it was too exposed, but Tazuna wasn't a ninja and would only slow them down if they tried another method. He just hoped that because this route was old any forces wouldn't be watching it. Naruto was looking around the forest. He didn't want to get surprised like last time, and this time he would be a bit more ready. He cast a worried look to Hinata and he knew that she had trouble believing in herself, although he didn't know why. She was one of the strongest kunoichi that he knew in their age range. She was the daughter of the head of one of the most powerful clans, and she had her family's bloodline and fighting style. She had a lot more going for her than most of the females in their class, so he didn't see the problem. He was wondering what to say to her but wasn't sure since as he didn't know what the exact problem was. He looked to see Kiba and Akamaru sniffing around for trouble. Shino looked calm and relaxed, but that wasn't new. Sasuke looked like he actually wanted a fight and Naruto was eager to get into a fight as well, but when he saw Sakura he noticed that she had been looking depressed lately. He would have asked her what was wrong, but his dad said they had to try and be silent from this point on, and so he never could get the chance. He didn't like the quit, although his dad kept telling him that silence was a good friend to a ninja. He just never liked it, it just went against who he was really. He sighed as they walked along the road until he noticed a rustling in the bushes. At first he thought it was an animal, but it was a bit big to be one. It had to be someone waiting for them, and he slowly went to his weapons pouch on his leg. "Got ya!" he shouted as he threw the kunai into the bushes, startling everyone there. Everyone turned to see what was going on, only to see a small little white rabbit hop out of the bushes. "Oh man, Naruto, you need to loosen up some," Kiba laughed. "Naruto, how could you?" Sakura yelled at him. It was a harmless bunny rabbit. Naruto-kun. Hinata agreed as she watched the little white bunny hopping along. She hoped that Naruto hadn't hurt the little rabbit. It was a cute little thing and she bent down towards it. The little white rabbit seemed to regard her for a moment before slowly going towards her. She was surprised at this. The rabbit seemed to be a tame animal and not some wild one. Hinata was thinking someone might have lost a pet as she slowly petted the small animal. "I think he likes you," Sakura said, smiling at the cute little animal. Hinata smiled as she dug into her backpack for something for it to eat. She found some small baby carrots she took for some snack food, as sometimes people didn't take the right kinds of foods with them on missions. She knew that Naruto would have carried a lot of instant ramen on him, and she made sure that he at least ate something good for him at times. She handed the small carrot to the animal as it sniffed it and slowly started to eat the offered food. Hinata giggled, feeling its whiskers tickling her hand. Kurenai sighed, knowing that look, the young girl would most likely want to keep it now. At least Akamaru didn't seem to mind the other animal. She was thinking of saying something when she noticed how hard Kakashi was staring at the rabbit. "What? Haven't you noticed that the rabbit is tame?" he asked her, and she looked at it. It was odd, but it could have been a pet, but there had to be more to it than that to get Kakashi so intent on it. It was just a small white rabbit, so, wait, it was white. They were in the wrong part of the land and the wrong season for white rabbits to show up. The only way both odd things about the rabbit would happen is if someone kept it around for something like substitution. "Everyone down!" Kakashi yelled out, and quickly everyone went down. A huge wind seemed to fly just over their heads, although it wasn't the wind exactly but the after effect of a giant sword being flung through the air, just missing them all. Everyone turned to see the sword being caught by a tall man. He wore no shirt, but his mouth was covered in bandages. There were some type of camo-style clothing on his arms, and although he looked strong, he wasn't like a bodybuilder, and yet he swung the giant 8-foot-long blade like it was nothing. Kakashi and Kurenai's eyes widened as they recognized the man right away. "Well, I was wondering what happened to the demon brothers, and look what I found. 2 genin teams. Guess the old man got a bit more protection than I was told he could afford. And I see we have Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja of Konoha, as well," he said in a cold killer's voice. He looked to Kurenai, studying her for a bit. "I don't know who you are though." Kurenai wasn't sure if she should be thankful a killer like this didn't know her or insulted. "I'm Kurenai Yuhi. Might have heard of you after all," he said, thinking on the name. Kurenai knew that she was still a rookie jonin, but she had worked hard to get where she was now, and if there was one thing she hated, it was a lack of respect. But she wouldn't let him goad her into any unnecessary actions either. She had a team of genin to think about. She and Kakashi could take him on, but the kids were in no way ready for this kind of monster. There was also the amount of killer intent that the man was giving off. It was a lot of it too. Kurenai felt her teeth on edge just by being this close to him, and the look in his eyes were just as scary. They were dark and totally menacing as well. Back with the genins, they too were feeling the killing intent of the man. For teammate who had never felt anything like this before, it was a shock for a bit. Akamaru whined as he took a few steps back, and Shino could feel the bugs inside of his body were very agitated by it. The others weren't doing too well too, that is until Naruto did what naturally came to him. He started shouting. "Come on, there's only one of him and 8 of us." Naruto shouted. He heard a growling and looked to see Akamaru glaring at him. "Ops, sorry, I mean 9. Naruto, don't you remember all those times I made you study my bingo book?" Kakashi yelled back to him, not taking his eyes off their opponent. "This is Zabuza, a missing nin from the Mist Village." Naruto thought about it. His dad for the last year made him study the bingo book like it was extra homework. He had asked why he had to study it, and his dad had simply told him that a good ninja knew the kind of enemies he might randomly face out there. Information about an opponent ahead of time could allow you an advantage, and a ninja took every advantage they could get in a fight. So Naruto had studied it, and his dad even told him some stories about them too. Let me think. Naruto had remembered a lot of stuff in there, but he was trying to place the name. Oh, I remember now. Zabuza, also known as the Demon of the Mist, right? Demon of the Mist? Kiba asked him. Oh yeah, why was he called that again? Naruto thought, trying to remember. Naruto, he was called that because the Mist Village used to be called the Blood Mist Village, Kakashi said, still keeping an eye on the man in front of them. Their genin exams were different than other villages. At the end each student was put up against another to a fight to the death. All year round they were comrades and friends, but in the end they would end up killing at least one of them or die by one of them at the end of their training. Oh, I remember that now, Naruto said as it brought back memories of Anko once using that as a bedtime story. He hadn't slept at all that night thanks to her, and he got that name Demon of the Mist because, What? Sakura asked him, not liking the look on his face. I got that name because I killed my entire class, Zabuza said as if he was proud of it. That's right, Kurenai said, knowing the story as well. 1 year only one student was alive and it was him. After that they changed the testing, but everyone remembers the one student that massacred his entire genin class. Sasuke tensed up at hearing this. This man sounded like his brother Itachi. If he ever had a chance to see what kind of ninja his brother was, this was a good way to judge. This Zabuza had an air about him. The killing intent that was coming off the man was insane, and he could feel the fear in his heart. He checked and noticed the others were starting to feel the effects of it as well. Akamaru was whimpering with his head down at the man. He could see sweat showing off of several of them as well. Everyone, I want you to protect our client. Let Kurenai and myself handle him, Kakashi ordered. Yes, Kakashi-sensei, Shino said as he looked to Hinata and Kiba as they took up defensive positions around the man. Naruto didn't want to, but he held back with the others and his team took up defensive options as well. Zabuza looked at the area around them and he didn't like this at all. The two Jonin would he trouble. Kakashi was about his level, but he didn't know about the woman. She looked seasoned in combat and sure of herself, but he wasn't sure what type of ninja she was. The kids were already defending the old man and he would have to get by the two adults. If it was just one Jonin he wouldn't mind the exercise, but as one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist he knew his limits. His eyes narrowed as he thought about his options, and he might have to play his trump card early. His partner, Haku, was waiting in the trees in case he couldn't finish the job. He was to hit him in spots with his Senbon needles that when hitting him would simulate death. He already had a mask from a ninja hunter from Mist that they had killed earlier that had tried to kill him. After all, he had tried to kill his Mizukage in a failed coup d'etat and had hunter nins after his ass since then. Haku had just been a young boy with talents that he'd picked up on his travel and was a good tool for him to use. The only problem was that the boy was still too soft for his own good, but it would look like he would need him anyway. Haku, get out here and deal with the kids while I deal with the adults. He's got a partner. Kakashi thought as he heard someone leap out of the trees behind them. He just hoped that they could handle whoever it was. The genin teams were surprised when a boy not much older than them jumped out to meet them. He was tall and thin, but he wore robes so they couldn't be sure. He also wore a mask of some kind that they hadn't seen before. I'm sorry, but I have to fight you, the boy said in a soft voice. Yeah, well, we're not. Go Akamaru, Kiba shouted out as his dog ran forward to meet the ninja. Haku saw the duo and quickly threw out several Senbon needles. Normally these weren't used as ninja weapons as they were very thin and a critical hit was hard to do. But to him they were a perfect weapon and his aim was always great. With lightning speed he threw the needles at the boy and the dog. Both were surprised as they fell back in pain as the needles hit their bodies. What the hell? Kiba shouted out, pulling out the needles. Guys, cover me while I get Akamaru. He ran to his dog to pull out the needles as Shino raised his arms. The insects came out to meet the strange ninja. Haku saw them coming and Shino noticed that the masked boy made one-handed seals. This surprised him as he never heard of anyone just using one hand to make seals before. But before he could think on what he could be doing, a block of ice jutted out of the ground. Yet again this was another surprise. How could he have done that? Shino thought as it was his turn to dodge Senbon needles as he redirected his bugs around the ice. Ice isn't a normal elemental attack. Could this be a water type? No, It doesn't feel like it. The only thing I can think of that even comes close was the first Hokage's ability to use wood. Is this the same? Is this a bloodline ability to make ice? Even thought Shino was the quiet type he had top grades in class. It wasn't too difficult to get an idea that this boy used some kind of ice ability, but bloodlines like this were rare. He also didn't know what his full abilities meant. Unlike his, everyone in his clan had the same abilities or like in Hinata's, but when you ran into someone with a unique bloodline you weren't sure what to expect. It left you at a disadvantage. Everyone be careful, he's got some kind of ice abilities, Shino called out. Meanwhile with the adults, Zabuza smirked under the bandages over his mouth. So here we are, I think I'll enjoy this. I wonder if Haku will kill them before or after I kill you too. Don't underestimate our teams, Kurenai said to him. Oh, I'll tell you this, if the boy's heart was as cold as his ice he could have surpassed me by now in everything. As it stands he's more than a match for anyone. I've trained him since a small boy and he's the most advanced tool I've ever used. A child is not a tool, Kurenai said. Fool, we're all tools, all ninjas are just tools to be used and discarded. He laughed at her face. Kakashi didn't like the sounds of this. He knew that his team was above an average team and they had handled some rough moments before. But a boy that Zabuza himself trained gave him a bad feeling. He and Kurenai needed to take him out quickly and make sure the others were okay. Well then I guess it's time to get serious, Kakashi said as he lifted his protector and uncovered his Sharingan eye. So the famous Sharingan, huh? I've always wanted to see it in action, guess that means you really are serious. Very well then, so will I, he said, started to make hand seals. Don't let him finish, Kakashi yelled out and Kurenai ran forward. Zabuza jumped back as he cried out, hidden mist jutsu, and suddenly a thick mist started to show up all over the place. Kurenai lost him for a moment but dodged back, feeling the wind of his blade coming towards her. She jumped back with Kakashi as he was looking around just as she was. Heart, lungs, liver, brain, throat. A voice came from the mist. These are just some of the ways to kill a person in one move. What's he doing? Kurenai softly asked. Zabuza is a master of the silent killing technique, Kakashi told her, seriously looking for the man. Suddenly a form came at them. Kakashi got his kunai up and just managed to block the sword coming at him, but he could feel the pain in his limbs from stopping the force of the blow. He was also certain his kunai would break if he tried that again. Kurenai didn't wait time and ran below the blade and stabbed him in the chest with her own kunai. But to her surprise he just turned into water and fell into the ground. Water clones? She asked out loud. Kakashi nodded and he couldn't hear them, but he had a bad idea. Teams 7 and 8, there could be more coming towards you. Kurenai looked shocked at him as she knew why he warned them. Zabuza could be also sending clones to help this Haku person as well. The genins were starting to form up. They had to protect their client, but also they had to deal with the ninja in front of them. It might not have been so bad, that is, until a thick mist started to show up around them. Zabuza's mist was thick enough to mask a person from sight unless were at least 15 feet in front of them. This made long-range attacks useless, but it still affected Haku. What the hell is going on? Naruto shouted out. How the hell should we know? Sasuke asked, irritated. Hinata, can you see what's going on? Kiba asked his teammate. Hinata nodded even though he couldn't see him. She closed her eyes and activated them, the veins protruding slightly from her skull as she opened her eyes. With them she could see through the mist, but she gasped out loud. There were more than just one ninja now. She called out to them to be careful of this. Kiba had pulled out the last of the Senbon needles as Hinata let out a warning. He couldn't smell anything, but Akamaru could sense something and barked out a warning as he jumped back as a huge blade hit the ground where he was. He couldn't believe how close that came. He put Akamaru on his head and pulled up the hood of his jacket to keep him tucked in until he could walk again. Well buddy, looks like this is going to get interesting, Kiba said to his small dog. Hinata found herself with Sakura as they were guarding the client. Hinata, warn us if someone is coming, okay? Sakura said with her tonfas out and ready. Hinata scanned the area feeling very nervous, as was Sakura, only less so. The amount of killing intent that was being sent out was chilling to the bone. Hinata looked and her eyes widened as a large form was coming towards them. She yelled out as it came at them. Sakura was closer and held up her weapons in defensive as the massive sword hit into her metal weapons. The jarring force of it made her arms numb. She felt a swift kick to her stomach as well as she hit the ground, but she rolled with it and jumped up back into a defensive move. She saw the shape of the ninja coming at her as she dodged and tried to swing one of her weapons back at him, but he dodged them. Hinata saw all of this but didn't move, at least not at first. She remembered how she had done nothing and Naruto had gotten hurt because of her. She was now watching Sakura and the other girl could get killed and she couldn't move her body. But she thought about all her friends fighting and how they could die without help. She had to help them, she couldn't afford to be weak at this moment. I won't let them down again, not this time. Hinata thought to herself. With that she launched herself at the Zabuza water clone. He noticed the girl and went to cut her in two. Hinata easily ducked under it and it was enough time for Sakura to hit the taller man in the back of the knees with her tonfas. The man growled out as he dropped to his knees. Hinata took her shot and placed several palm strikes to his chest, making the clone dissipate into water. Sakura gave Hinata a thankful smile and Hinata smiled back, feeling better that this time she had managed to help instead of just freezing up like last time. Hinata, can you also tell the others what to do if they need help? Hinata nodded her head. Shino, Kiba-kun needs help, he's over to your left. Naruto-kun, there's someone behind you. Hinata shouted out. Naruto turned and pulled up his family sword to block a blade, only to find himself flung back a few feet from the huge sword. Oh man, that's a big sword, Naruto muttered as what looked like Zabuza charged at him. He jumped back from the mist ninja and putting the sword down for a second started to make several of his own clones. Alright ugly, try and take on all of us. The clones charged the other clone, but the massive sword cut through most of the clones. If that's all you got kid, you're going to die very soon. Oh yeah, well I don't die so easily. Naruto shouted out, making more and more clones. Kid, this is pathetic, the Zabuza clone said, killing all the clones easily enough. What he didn't know was the Naruto was going to use the same trick he used on the demon brothers. It worked out so well that mixing in shadow clones with exploding shadow clones was becoming a winning strategy with him. As soon as there was an opening, one of the clones latched onto the leg of the Zabuza clone and an explosion was seen and felt. There was a small gap in the mist as the concussion blew away the mist. Naruto looked to see all his clones had been taken out, but so had the other Zabuza. Yeah, I got him. Naruto-kun, Sasuke is in trouble. Hinata called out to him. Naruto could hear steel on steel and guessed that was where Sasuke had to be as he ran towards the noises. Sasuke was having a hard time again, the masked ninja. The other boy was fast, really fast, faster than he was. He got in close, but the boy's taijutsu skills were better than his and those Senbon needles were a major pain as well. He had to use his sword to block most of them, but a few still got through. He jumped back to get some room as he put the sword into the ground and started to make the hand seals for his grand fireball jutsu. The large fireball headed for the ninja and Sasuke smirked, seeing that the other ninja wasn't going to dodge it. There was an explosion, but as soon as the smoke cleared he was surprised to see that their ninja was still there, only in what looked like a piece of ice. The side facing him almost looked like a mirror instead, that it didn't reflect anything back. I'm impressed, it's been a while since anyone has made me use this technique, Hiku stated. Unfortunately I can't allow you to stand in the way of Zabuza-san's dream. If you don't move aside I will be forced to deal with you. Do your best, Sasuke said. Very well then, demonic ice mirrors, Hiku said, and suddenly Sasuke found himself surrounded by the ice mirrors, but they all held an image of the masked ninja. At first he thought it was an illusion like that woman he fought before, but when the Senbon needles were thrown they were all real. His eyes couldn't see an illusion this time like the last time he was in something like this time they were all somehow real. He tried his fireball jutsu again, but he only managed to slightly melt the edges, but they just froze over again. If he could he would try those other fire jutsus that he had been working on, but in this kind of enclosed area they would do a lot more damage to himself than the enemy ninja. Damn it, this guy's better than that other missing nin, there has to be a way around this. I can't get out, but if someone were to attack from the outside it might work, at least it's better than just charging right in or they would be as stuck as I am. Hey, Sasuke, how's it going? Naruto shouted out as he jumped into the ice-mirrored cage. Sasuke just stared at him for a moment. Idiot. Naruto just ignored the look. So you're trying to kill the old man, huh? That's not exactly a good thing in my book. I don't want to, but to protect Zabuza's dream I will do what's necessary for him, Hiku said as a hail of Senbons from all direction came at them. The boys did their best to dodge and deflect them, but there were just too many of them. Many hit them over and over again. They tried to fight back, but Haku was just too fast. Naruto tried to make shadow clones and attack each mirror, but Haku was able to attack each one in the blink of an eye. The boys weren't doing well and they were running out of ideas. Shino and Kiba had managed to find the girls and the old bridge builder. They decided to keep together as they could see the others, although the sounds of battle could be heard. Shino said that they had to protect their client and they needed to ensure his survival. There were some mutters against it, but he could be very persuasive when he had to be. But for Hinata, she could see that Naruto and Sasuke were in real trouble. She couldn't stand watching as both of them were being hurt more and more, and she just stood there. Seeing Naruto go down again in a yell of pain was just one time too much. She broke free from the group. She heard them yelling at her to come back. She was sorry, but she had to help him. All the time Naruto was the one that helped her, but she had never really helped him out when he was in trouble. Without thinking, she ran up to the ice mirrors, seeing Naruto on the group in a group of Senbons heading for him. She didn't think as she jumped to cover him. She gave a small cry as the needles hit her back and arms. Naruto was expecting the impact but suddenly felt something very warm covering him. He heard a whimper of pain, and when the pressure left he looked up to see Hinata's smiling face. "Hinata, are you okay, Naruto-kun?" she asked him. "Hinata, you're hurt," Naruto said, seeing the needles inside of her. "I had to help you. You've helped me so much in the past, it's only right I do the same." She gave him a small smile but winced, feeling some of the pain in her body. He cried out and held her close to him as she looked a little unsteady. Haku saw this and couldn't help but feel sad at the sight. He didn't want to kill them, but it looked like the girl meant a lot to the boy and what he had to do gave him no joy at all. He continued his attack but was surprised by the girl's abilities. She was able to dodge them much better than the boys, and with her bare hands was able to hit the center of his Senbons, knocking them out of the way. "I'm sorry, but I have to end this. This is taking too much time," Haku told them all. Before they could give a replay, the masked ninja fired a horde of needles at them all. Naruto felt the blinding pain all over his body as he slowly tried to get up. He went to look on Sasuke and Hinata, but they were both on the ground. He ran over to them. The fear in his heart was racing through him. "Sasuke, Hinata-chan," he yelled out as he checked on them. They were hardly moving and they didn't look too good either. "Damn it, I guess I couldn't kill him after all," Sasuke groaned out. "Don't say that like you're going to die, you bastard," Naruto told him. Sasuke gave a rare smile at him. "An idiot to the end, huh, Naruto?" The boy went limp and he heard Hinata coughing as he turned to her. "Hinata-chan, just hang on, okay?" "Naruto-kun, I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough." "You are strong. How many times do I have to tell you that?" he pleaded with her. Sasuke was already gone and he couldn't lose Hinata. She was too important to his life, his first and best friend. She meant so much to him that he felt like he was dying on the inside. "Naruto-kun, I've wanted to tell you that. She passed out and fell still at that moment. "Hinata-chan, Hinata," Naruto shouted out, feeling the tears coming out as he held her limp body in his arms. "No, you can't die. You're not supposed to die. I'm sorry, but as I said, I can't let you get in the way," Haku stated. "You think that makes it all right?" Naruto said, his voice getting deeper. He was shaking all over as he looked at the boy. Haku noticed something odd about his eyes. They were red now and he could have sworn that they had been blue earlier. Then Haku felt a large pulse of chakra and killing intent, the likes he had never felt before. Naruto clenched the sword in his hand as the blade glowed, but this wasn't the white glow that it was known for. It was red now. In fact, a mass of red chakra seemed to erupt from the boy as everyone in the battle felt the sudden surge of power. Haku was so surprised he nearly missed. All the needles were somehow forced out of the boy's body and he came at the mirrors even faster than before. The sword, which left a red streak as it moved, actually cut into the mirrors, nearly shattering them. "I have to end this quickly," Haku thought, worried. "I don't know what's going on, but he's gone berserk. I have to deal with him now or I might not be able to do it later." As Naruto was on the ground, he tried to appear in the top mirror and try to stab the boy from the air. But he seemed to know, or at least moved fast enough to dodge. The next thing he knew, his kunai was cut in half by the boy's sword and felt his wrist being crushed in the boy's hand. He was surprisingly strong, and looking into those pain-filled red eyes, he froze at the sight of them. It was nearly like looking into the eyes of a demon, and the killing intent and chakra were so intense he couldn't even move. Naruto shifted his sword hand to the blade was facing away as he slammed his fist into the boy's face, sending him flying into one of the mirrors and then landing into the ground. Without his concentration, the mirrors melted into water, but Naruto didn't care. The tears were flowing through his eyes as he ran at the boy. Haku managed to get to his knees as he saw the boy coming at him. The mask being damaged fell apart and Naruto could see the face behind it for the first time. He saw the hurt face there, but it was the eyes that he couldn't help but see. The eyes were filled with a pain and regret that seemed familiar to him for some reason. He wanted to kill this boy, but something inside of him couldn't help but look at the boy's eyes. The image of that ninja he tore open came to mind at the last second, and he stopped the blade at the boy's throat. "Why?" Naruto shouted in his face with his sword resting on the boy's neck. "Why what? Why are you so ready to die? Why did you have to kill them? Why are you working for someone like ZODIVK? Tell me why." Naruto shouted out, feeling the tears on his face. Haku gave him a sad smile. "I had no one. I was going to die in the cold alone, hated by everyone just because of my ability. In Mist, everyone with a bloodline ability is hunted down and killed. It was ZODIVK-san that found me, trained me, he gave me my life back and gave me a purpose again. My dream is for him to achieve his dream, and if it means my life, then so be it. So please kill me now. I'm nothing more than a broken tool for him now. I'm worthless to him now." "A tool? That's all you think you are?" Naruto asked. "All ninja are tools to be used by others," Haku told him simply. "I don't believe that. We are not tools, we're human first. We all have lives, hopes and dreams, and tools don't have any of that." Haku gave him a warm smile then. "You are truly unique. I wish I had known you better in life. I'm sorry I killed those close to you, but please, end me now." Naruto closed his eyes. He didn't know what to do. This boy just reminded him too much of himself. Kakashi had adopted him and taken him in when he had no one and had been a good father to him. And now this boy had the same thing done to him. If it was Kakashi, then Naruto would die to protect his father as well. But to just think of yourself as just a tool, with a dream that wasn't even your own in life. Then there was Hinata and Sasuke behind him. He wanted to kill him for that, but he also pitied him too. He didn't know what to do. With Kakashi and Kurenai, they were having a major fight on their hands with ZODIVK. The man's reputation was well worth it as they had a hard time with him. He created a large water dragon at them that they managed to dodge it, although he didn't exactly let up with that either. That large sword of his was trouble, and the man moved in and out of the mist like he was a phantom. ZODIVK wasn't going easy on them either, as both Jonin were now fighting on the lake trying to keep ahead of the man. "I think it's time for a little bait and switch," Kakashi whispered to her. Kurenai nodded her head, knowing what he was talking about. It would just take the right moment to get it set up. It was a complex genjutsu that she was preparing, and it needed a lot of concentration. ZODIVK came at them again as Kakashi threw down smoke bombs. He could fight through the mist, so some smoke wouldn't do anything for him. It was also the best time to get his water prison jutsu for them. He would have to use both hands, but he could wait until they were drowned in the water. As he came through the smoke, seeing the two Jonins, he smirked as he had them right where he wanted them. As soon as they stopped moving, he gathered the water around them into a sphere, shoving a hand into each sphere to control the prison. He knew he had them as he saw their surprised looks, but something was wrong. He could feel no real change in pressure in the water. It was almost as if he jumped out of the way as Kakashi came flying out of nowhere, nearly attacking him from behind. He let the prison go as the illusion of the two Jonins inside vanished. He had to admit that illusion was good. If he hadn't known about the weight difference in the water, he would never had known. He turned to face Kakashi when he realized that he couldn't see where the woman was. Just as he was about to move, something strange happened. A tree was suddenly growing out of nowhere, but the thing was, it was growing around him. He knew it was an illusion, but it was so real that he couldn't even move. In a swirl of air, the woman seemed to appear out of thin air. "Demonic illusion. Tree binding death," she said as the jutsu was completed. "You should never underestimate someone just because you never heard of them." "Apparently so," the man said back, glaring at her. Across the area, Haku had prepared himself for death, but something was wrong. He could feel something wrong with ZODIVK. He cast a look and he didn't like what he could see in the mist. For years he had trained enough to be able to see through it enough to know what was going on. I'm sorry but it seems I can't die just yet, Haku told him with a sad smile. Before Naruto could react, the boy made several hand seals with his one hand and suddenly vanished right there. Across from them on the lake, Zabuza was held in Kurenai's tree as he stared down Kakashi. He could tell that he was finished at this moment and he couldn't break out. Kakashi came running over to him with his Chidori charged up and ready to pierce his chest. He didn't blink or look away. If this was how his life ended, he would stare it straight on and meet death itself unflinching or afraid. Kakashi got closer, but when he was within a few feet, the boy Haku suddenly appeared out of nowhere in front of him. Kakashi's arm was already extending and it seemed time slowed down as he locked eyes with the boy. He seemed sad and yet he held a purpose in him. He was sacrificing himself for Zabuza. He could hear Naruto yelling out to him to stop, but he wasn't sure he could at this moment. Kakashi thought that he had passed the point of no return as he watched his hand moving towards the boy. He was getting closer and closer until